In our world here there are many types of creatures, and each type has its own abilities and special skills, and amongst them are some humans like our hero Light, who frankly serve no purpose at all. And one day Light decided to leave his home to become an adventurer and went to the big city to register at the Adventurers Guild. As soon as he arrived, he met the kind receptionist who helped him register, and since it was his first time registering at the guild, she told him he would start from the lowest rank, which is F. And she told him frankly, you serve no purpose and are completely useless. And she also asked him, do you have any talent or special ability you can use? Our hero Light replied enthusiastically and said to her, yes, I have a skill called the gotcha skill. The receptionist stood stunned for a few seconds as if she couldn't believe what she heard. But he really meant it, and he has a strange luck wheel that he can summon. And when he presses it, it gives him a random item each time. He said to her, I'll show you an example so you understand what I mean. He summoned the wheel of luck and pressed the button. The wheel spun immediately and gave him a bent fork. He tried to justify that this strange fork he got might have some use, but the receptionist still didn't understand his strange ability. He tried a second time, and unfortunately, it gave him a rotten apple that no one could ever eat. The receptionist, of course, wanted to hit him, but since she is respectful, she tried to control herself and said to him, son, with the skill you have, you will never ever get promoted and will remain in Frank forever. He said to her, okay, so what jobs can I do to earn money now, and what quests suit my rank? She quickly showed him the board with all the available quests, but unfortunately our hero was completely illiterate and couldn't read or write, obviously because he never went to school. The receptionist felt his suffering and said to him, all right, I'll explain everything to you. And she started reading the quests listed on the board. She told him that the quests suitable for him currently are jobs like gathering firewood, moving soil, or cleaning gardens, but the pay is very little and barely covers your expenses. He said to her, fine, no problem, I agree to these quests. And indeed, on the same day he worked and tried his best with his small body, and by the end of the day he had barely earned some money to pay the rent for his house. But as he was walking at night, a group of human-like monsters saw him and knew he was new. They went and beat him up and stole his money. Light kept begging them to return his money, saying, if you take everything I have, I'll have to sleep on the street. But the monsters laughed at him, and no one in the street cared about what he said because humans in this world are at the bottom, the lowest beings in rank and power, and of course no one was prepared to defend him. He sat in the middle of the mud as people passed by kept looking at him and bullying him. They kept saying hurtful words to him like he's a useless human, until one person actually stopped to help him. She reached out her hand to him. At first he thought she was a human, but when he looked closely he found she was from the elf race. He was startled and scared, quickly pulled his hand back, and thought she would take advantage of him. But the elf said to him, don't be afraid, and sat next to him, hugging him to calm him down. Light couldn't believe his eyes. How could an elf treat him so kindly? But she seemed truly sincere with him. She introduced him to the rest of her team, and told him that they are called the Tribal Union, a team composed of 9 different races, and their goal is to end the racism between the races existing in this world. The leader's name is Guru, and he is one of the monsters, and the elf's name is Sa. She told him, we have almost all races, but we are missing a human, and that's why we want you to be the 9th member of the team. It sounded good on paper, but why did they choose a weak 12-year-old child who is useless? But never mind, let's see how it ends. And from that day on, every time the team went out on a mission, Light would go with them just as a pack carrier. Unfortunately as he is, he remained useless. In less than 10 minutes on the first mission, he was about to die from a huge troll that attacked him, and luckily Draghi and Sasha saved him at the last moment. Sasha said to him, focus, Light, this place is one of the most dangerous dungeons in the world. Any creature here could kill you in an instant and you must stay close to us. He apologized and Sasha tried not to upset him, saying, come here, let me see if you're hurt, while checking on him. The rest of the team started getting annoyed. Why are you always so affectionate with him? They laughed and left them. After that, they continued their path deep into the dungeon and placed Light in the middle so nothing would happen to him, until they reached a narrow passage. Guru said, this is a suitable place to Light thought they were going to rest, so he put down his backpack and started making tea for everyone. But Draghi said to him, it's not necessary. We're not stopping here to rest. We're stopping here because we've decided to expel you from the team. Oh, the shock was huge for our hero Light. He said to them, are you joking or are you serious? They said to him, no joking, the talk is for real. Even Sasha, who was kind to him a moment ago, did a 180-degree turn and said to him, you are a pathetic and stupid human and your presence with us serves no purpose. Light, not understanding anything, said to them, wait a moment, why are you saying this? So they started explaining to him that all the time that passed they were acting for him. They told him that all the talk about equality and ending racism was all a trick and a lie. We are in fact among those who hate humans the most. In short, from the first day they wanted to get rid of him. He asked, then why did you waste your time and bring me with you in the first place? Guru replied and said to him, we wanted your skill. Your skill is called gotcha, right? Correct? It's a lousy skill, but it resembled a skill called the maestro, and the officials above wanted to see if this skill would develop and become useful or not. That's why they asked us to treat you well temporarily. And in the end, they saw that you were a disgusting brat, you and your skill, so we no longer need to pretend that we love you. Light stood stunned, not comprehending everything that was happening, but they didn't care. On the contrary, they intended to end the matter literally. And Guru said to him with a wicked smile, you will never ever get out of this dungeon alive, and right after these words I will attack you. He wounded him in the face. Blood poured down, terrified and scared. He got up and ran with all his energy to escape, but they laughed and said to him, even if you run away, the first monster you meet will finish you off immediately. You'd better stay here so we can kill you with our own hands. Sasha immediately raised her bow and shot him, and her arrow pierced his leg. He fell to the ground screaming in pain while the others were laughing and happy to hear his screams. Oh, the boy was literally being humiliated to the extreme. Guru approached and started kicking him with his foot to make him cry more, but Draghi said to him, enough, we're supposed to say that a monster attacked him, and we can't leave marks proving we were. Guru laughed and said to him, it's no use, you can't escape from us ever. But Light, despite the wound, kept crawling and trying, and suddenly, while trying to get away, he touched something on the ground. It was a magical teleportation trap. The trap immediately activated, and he was instantly transported to one of the floors existing in the deep dungeon. So he is literally away from those who betrayed him, but frankly, that doesn't mean he is safe. Because this place is literally deeper and more dangerous, and everything in it could kill him in a second. He knows, of course, that he is weak and knows that the first monster he meets will be his end. He sat on the ground trying to process what happened and why they turned on him so suddenly. He was saying, I was with them all this past time, and I thought they loved me and they were my friends, treating me with tenderness and respect, and it turned out all of that in the end was an act. It became clear that they were just using him because they thought he had a rare skill, and when they discovered his skill was lousy, they decided to get rid of him. Tears fell, and he said, I will never forgive them ever. Even if it's the last thing I do, I will live and come back to kill them one by one. But suddenly he heard a sound behind him. He turned and found a giant rock monster named Chimera. Its level is 1000. Even the strongest adventurers are around levels 300 and 400, meaning this monster is tens of times stronger than them. The monster approached him. Light was literally scared to the point that he felt his body paralyzed and couldn't move from his spot. He knows, of course, that there is no chance to escape. He has nothing but his gotcha skill, which he always saw as useless, but he has no other choice but it. He started pressing the button frantically, once, twice, a third time, and at the moment the monster jumped on him to kill him. The wheel lit up and suddenly transformed, and a very beautiful maid girl came out of it. She extended her hand, and with a single strike she erased the monster from existence. Light, of course, stood shocked and unable to believe what happened. The girl approached him, knelt on her knees, put her hand on his face to heal him, and said, I can't bear to see wounds on a beautiful body like yours. And suddenly all the wounds he had disappeared. The girl called him my master and asked him, what is your name? He said to her, my name is Light. She said to him, from today, I am your loyal servant for life. My name is Mai and I am nicknamed the Eternal Seeking Maid. And by the way, this girl's level is over 9000. Mai told him, I am a very rare result from your skill, and my spirit is now linked to you. In short, he made an ultra-legendary pull from the luck wheel he has. Light wasn't comprehending what was happening. He, of course, always thought it was a useless skill, so how did such a powerful being come out of it? Mai said to him, allow me to examine your skills to determine their true power. Mai was surprised to find that she also has the appraisal skill. He said to her, fine, do what you want. She started examining him, and after a while Mai was surprised and said to him, your skill is protected by many layers of magic, and only people of my level can see and know its truth. From what I see, you can use this skill an infinite number of times, and the prizes that come out of it depend on the concentration of mana in the place. She told him that the prize grades start from normal up to an ultra pull. He, of course, didn't understand what she was saying. Mai started explaining to him and said, the mana that exists in the air and everywhere on the Earth's surface is very weak, which is why your chance of pulling something strong from this wheel of luck is very weak. But in the depths of this dungeon, the mana here is very strong, so the chance of success increases thousands of times. And this, of course, is the reason why Mai came out for him in the ultra pull. And she said to him, you came down here intentionally to activate your true power? But he shook his head and said to her, I was deceived. The people I thought were my friends betrayed me, hurt me, threw me away. And he practically sang her the story of his life. He told her that all he wanted was to live a good life for his family, but they tried to kill him because he is a human and from the human race. He shouted, I will never forgive them as long as I live. Mai immediately hugged him and said, I understand your pain. I may not be able to feel it, but I can make you feel comfort as long as you are with me. And she said to him, give me the order and I will cut off their heads and finish them all in an instant. Light immediately stood up and said to her, no, don't kill them. She said to him, why? These people don't deserve mercy. He said to her, I don't want you to kill them, not because I'm kind, but because I will take revenge with my own hands. He said to her, I was weak and deceived. Next time I will be strong enough so that this doesn't happen again. Mai smiled and said to him, okay sir, no problem at all. If you want to become strong like that, I will help you with all my strength, and I will make you the person who can get his rights by himself. Good for you, Mai. And wow, our hero Light folks will transform from a lousy kid and will possess a legendary and very awesome skill. We continue our story and learn that after 3 years, in the middle of the dungeon where Light was, he used his gacha skill to build a complete empire. He summoned a full army of powerful servants who were literally obsessed with him and loved him very much. We see that every female servant is literally in love with Light, saying they must have used up all their luck just to be close to him. One of them even added that she herself wanted to hug him, and literally all the female servants were out of control. Later, Light goes out to greet his people. Everyone literally loves him and wants to offer him the best food. If some people are short on supplies, Light is a kind leader and sits to report to the administration. Mai is following everything and wants to solve any problem immediately so that Light's image doesn't look bad. After that, Light noticed that the population had increased a lot over 3 years, so he might review and adjust the entire system anew. Then Light asked about his top warriors, whom he had summoned, of course, through his special gacha magic. They are all from rare cards of level 9999, whom he had summoned before. Mai told him that each one is currently on a mission. She tells him that Ayuki is scouting the upper part of the dungeon and making maps of the forests surrounding the dungeon, which are full of monsters and shouldn't be trusted. She's a genius tamer, and Yaoi is working on developing new magic as part of Light's grand plan. Of course, Light is busy with many things back to back, so he hopes Yaoi doesn't get confused by the great pressure on her. Light thanked Mai, telling her he is grateful for all the help, but he noticed she didn't mention Nazuna, so he was surprised and asked her what she's been doing these days. Mai laughed and told him that Nazuna is currently walking around the palace, not because they need extra security, but frankly because she is very stupid and doesn't know how to do anything except fight. In the palace, Nazuna is walking happily without a clear goal, but as long as she doesn't cause trouble, no one says anything to her. We return to Light after that. It's time for his daily training. He went to meet one of his powerful servants named Jack. Even though he has a huge army to protect him, he still wants to become strong enough to rely on himself. We learn that Light has been training with Jack for 3 years and can indeed fight him as an equal. On the other hand, Nazuna is still walking around the palace until she saw some servants sweeping. She told them she was on a very secret mission, so they started praising her, saying she was doing an excellent job. They were complimenting her because they wanted a favor from her. The fool Nazuna fell into the trap as usual. They told her about a special place they wanted her to go to as part of her patrol, and she immediately agreed. This special place is Light's room. After a while she went to knock on Light's room door, but the one who opened was Mai. Mai was surprised why Nazuna came to Light's room. Nazuna said she wanted to search inside. Mai said the room is well secured, but Nazuna said, since Light is training outside, what are you doing in his room? Mai replied, a skilled maid is never idle, but Nazuna ignored her and entered. She noticed that someone had just been tossing and turning on the bed, messing up the pillows and was busy smelling them. Mai was very annoyed and said, this is my special way of making beds, it's a trade secret and it's none of your business. Nazuna believed her and was impressed, saying to Mai, you are worthy of your status as the first summoned. Then she handed her a letter from the other maids, who were of course upset about Mai monopolizing Light's room. They wanted to enter his room themselves to clean it. Nazuna asked Mai, do you want me to help you with something? Mai understood the message very well and gave Nazuna a small reward and made her leave. Nazuna went to buy sweets with the reward. After that, she met Ayuki on the terrace. Nazuna was surprised and said, weren't you on a reconnaissance mission? But Ayuki was mumbling and wasn't understandable at all. Nazuna thought she was saying, destroy the entire forest, and she was indeed about to do so until Ayuki was forced to speak normally, and told her she was just bringing a part of the finished map. Nazuna laughed and said, well, you should have said so from the beginning, took the map from her and continued her tour. Later she entered the throne room, and when she found the place empty she seized the opportunity, went and sat on Light's throne, and started snuggling into it. She began to pamper herself, thinking that Light missed her, and she hadn't seen him today. Suddenly she heard a loud cracking sound and discovered she had broken one of the throne's armrests. She got very scared and started fixing it quickly so it would look intact, but of course she just stuck it back anyhow and ran out scared and terrified. Outside the palace, Light and Jack finished their training and decided to go to the bathhouse to relax. Jack told him he had become excellent at controlling his body, and his level was now higher than many fighters. But he warned him not to be overconfident because they don't know what might await them if they leave the dungeon. Light said, "I understand your words well, and I won't let the power control me, so when the time for revenge comes, I won't mess things up." At the same time, Mei gathered the 4 maids who sent the letter and started yelling at them saying, "You know why I brought you here?" They tried to deny it, but she had memorized the letter word for word, and Nazuna had literally told her everything, so they had no escape. They started apologizing, saying they did it just to lessen her burden. But Mei was very angry, especially since they made Nazuna deliver the letter instead of them. She told them their request was denied, and as punishment she would make them clean the entire corridor leading to the throne room with their own hands, and without magic of course. They were shocked and told her the task was impossible, but Mei said, "This is a chance for you to practice patience." She also announced she was going on a mission to the surface, so they had to do all the work in her place. After that we see Nazuna standing in front of a weapon shop, and what does she see by chance? She remembers she came to buy sweets, but she tells herself, "Nazuna, you saw some very fancy fighting gloves and really want to get them." At that moment she was surprised that Ai was there with her now and not at her work. So Ai tells her, "Things are going well, so I decided to take a break and relax." Then Yi decided to provoke Nazuna and show how stupid she is. She asked her some multiplication table questions, and with the first question Nazuna answered wrong. They started squabbling and all the city's inhabitants were watching them. Ei continued her provocation of Nazuna, saying, "Light is relying on me for the main revenge plan, not like you. He makes you wander around on useless patrols." Nazuna said, "My patrols are important, not like what you imagine." I continued provoking her, saying, "Yesterday I drank tea with Light, just the 2 of us." Nazuna became very upset. She wished she could sit with him and drink tea too. Ei told her, "Next time, Light will even book a special room for me and sit with me." Suddenly Ei realized that Nazuna was saying, "You're a witch and your mana energy could run out at any moment during battle. If you need any help from me during the fight, I'll be by your side and help you." So I took it to heart and said, "Agreed," and left. Nazuna was happy walking away so she wouldn't be sad. Later the 4 maids sat in their room very upset. They said the punishment was unfair and that only Mei has the right to enjoy Light's scent and be with him always. One suggested they poison and kill her, but one of them said that Mei is immune to poisons and nothing affects her at all. So they gave up and started crying that they wanted to clean Light's room to smell the scent of his bed. One of them said she wanted to eat with a fork that Light used, but another replied, "The obsession hasn't reached that level yet." Jealousy among them literally started working at the highest level. They remembered that Mei is no better than them because she was on his bed today and also was the first one Light summoned. And she spent many months alone with him when he was weak. So they decided to cast a curse out of their jealousy and started wishing she would die. By their bad luck, Mei was standing behind the door and heard everything they said. She entered suddenly and said, "Would you like to say something else?" They immediately got scared and started trembling, saying they didn't mean anything they said. But she heard them herself. In the end they admitted they were jealous of her because she was the first one Light summoned. Mei told them that nothing inappropriate happened between her and Light, and she was only teaching him combat arts and history. She also said she was intending to apologize to them for the previous punishment, but after what she heard she decided to increase the punishment and asked them to clean the throne room as well. While cleaning, one of them was cleaning the throne, and the armrest that Nazuna had broken fell off again. They all fell silent, realizing they were in big trouble. The next morning Light goes out to meet Ai and Nazuna, who were squabbling as usual. Nazuna was very happy that her wish came true and she saw him. Light was treating Yuki like a cat, and the others were of course extremely jealous of each other. Suddenly a hellhound appeared, the same type of monster that attacked Light when he first arrived in the dungeon long ago. Light's body was still trembling from the memory of that terrifying day, but now the situation is different because he has his warriors around him, who are ready to fight at any time. Nazuna of course got extremely angry and said, "How dare a dog challenge Light while I'm here?" And Ai was also furious and said, "I'll teach it manners." And Yuki was also upset and decided to kill it and wipe its entire species from existence. They looked at the monster and said, "Get ready for our level 9999 power." They were just about to finish it off, but Light calmly stopped them and said, "I'm fine now." They immediately listened to him and stepped back. After that, Light apologized to the monster for scaring it and said, "If I had let them at you, they would have literally erased you from existence." Then Light told them the reason he gathered them, which was of course after he received word that Mei's mission was successful and it was time to execute the plan. The prey took the bait and it's time to execute the second step. The other girls are very jealous of Mei because she knows everything and has surpassed them in preparing the plan, but at the same time they are also extremely excited. Light told them, the time for revenge has now come, for which he has been preparing for 3 years. Garo was walking with his followers in the middle of the city. Since he is their hero, everyone there was overjoyed, praising and glorifying him as if he were the king, to the point where one of the monsters behind him called out and said to him, "If you want to marry my sister, I agree." But Garo didn't pay him any mind and walked away as if he hadn't heard anything, of course because he currently isn't free, nor are girls on his mind. At that moment, he saw a small human boy who looked very miserable, searching through the garbage for any food to satisfy his hunger. The boy wasn't close to him at all, but Garo, instead of ignoring him, turned towards him on purpose, went and kicked him, knocking him to the ground, and kept bullying him just for amusement and simply to humiliate. After that, he gathered his pathetic gang and entered a private room so his followers could start applauding him, glorifying him, and kept praising him and even singing a song in his name as is their habit. All of them were trying to please him to gain his favor since he is their great hero. One of them started saying, "Wow, Garo, you are a miracle. You came from a poor neighborhood of monsters and became the closest one now to being the new leader." Another said, "Even the current leader acknowledges your strength here." Then they asked him, "Tell us how you reached this position so quickly." Garo puffed up with pride and said to them, "All I do is follow my animal instinct, and it always chooses the best jobs for me. Like that time 3 years ago, I got a very good deal. All that was required of me was to pretend to be from the race unification group and eliminate one human they suspected of having a mysterious power." With complete coldness, he continued his talk. "I didn't even check if he died or not, but with his weakness, it's impossible for him to be alive after what happened to him. So it's better we forget about that kid completely." Suddenly, the door opened and a girl who looked very elegant entered. This girl was Mai. She entered the room and asked in a calm voice, "Are you Garo? I want to ask you about someone named Light." His men immediately shouted at her, "How dare you speak in that manner with him?" But Garo raised his hand and said to them, "Leave her. I just want to know what she wants." Mai said, "I am the maid of Master Light, and I've come from a distant land searching for him everywhere." She told him that Master Light is from a large and very noble family, and that she has been in his service for a long time. Garo looked at her suspiciously and thought to himself, "This doesn't make sense to me, because the people who hired me for that mission did a full search on him, and it never came up that he was from a noble family, nor did he say that but this girl really looks like a maid from a wealthy family." He smiled and said to her, "Okay, what exactly do you want from me?" Mai said, "I received news that Master Light died in the dungeon about 3 years ago, and I want you to take me to the place where he died so I can pay my respects, and I'll give you pure gold in return." Garo sensed something fishy in this talk and that something was wrong. Why would a girl pay so much gold to go to an old place? There must be a trap, but when he looked at her again and saw that she was just a normal, weak human, he laughed and thought to himself, "Is this the one who will cause me trouble? She looks very weak." He said aloud, "Okay, I'll help you. Not for the money, but because Light was my friend and I want to help him." Mai smiled deceitfully inside, knowing that everything he said was a lie, but she had to keep playing the role. So she thanked him and said, "I am very grateful to you." After a full month of travel, they finally reached the place where Light had disappeared 3 years ago. But Garo had no intention of honoring the agreement anyway, and he had another plan in mind. As soon as they arrived, he would attack Mai and leave her to die in the same way Light died. As soon as they arrived, Mai knelt on the ground, her tears falling as she imagined the moments when Light was alone, lost and trapped in the darkness of the dungeon. How difficult it must have felt. The despair and helplessness he felt. Garo began his acting, saying, "The poor kid was attacked by a monster suddenly and fell into a teleportation trap before we could catch up with him. At the same time, his men began moving quietly to block the exit so Mai couldn't escape, waiting for the moment to attack. But suddenly, before they could attack her, Mai said in a voice full of anger, "But if I had been with Master Light from the beginning, he wouldn't have been betrayed like that, nor would he have fallen into the hands of scum like you." As soon as Garo heard this sentence, his expression changed and he began to retreat a step back because the thing she said was known only to the people who were in on the plot. "What does she mean, who betrayed Light? How does she know these details?" He shouted, "How do you know that? You look like a spy or a follower of some race." Mai breathed angrily and said, "How dare you compare me to them? I am the maid of Master Light and will remain in his service all my life, and anyone who doubts my loyalty will face the punishment of death." The atmosphere changed suddenly. Garo felt something terrifying inside him. This woman is a normal human, but the aura emanating from her made the hair on his body stand on end. His animal instinct itself was telling him that he must escape immediately. Mai was about to unleash her fury and turn the place into a slaughterhouse, but before she could do so, a calm voice came from behind her and said, "That's enough, Mai. Leave this one, he is my prey." Garo and his men froze in their places. None of them felt anyone approach nor heard any footsteps. When they looked, they found Light standing in front of them. Garo's eyes widened, unable to believe what he was seeing. Impossible. How is Light alive? Light looked at him with complete coldness and said, I came back to take my revenge with my own hands, Garo. Garo exploded with laughter then and said, You weakling, I'm now at level 150 and you were at level 15 back then. How could you even touch? He wasn't convinced that Light was truly strong, but in his mind he had a plan. If he killed Light himself and brought his body, he would be the greatest hero to the leader and would become the new leader himself. But Light was unaffected and unafraid and said to him calmly, I don't even want you to ask me how I survived. Garo laughed and said, Surely this woman saved you when you teleported. But the strange thing is that was indeed the truth. Garo immediately shouted to his men and demanded that they attack him. Two of them lunged at him with incredible speed, but before they could even reach him, their heads flew from their bodies in a second. His men froze in terror. They couldn't even see my finishing them off. Garo told them to keep their calm and said to himself, This must be a coincidence. It's impossible for her to be this strong. Light looked and said to her calmly, Thank you for intervening, but from here on, I will take care of everything. Guard the exit and don't let anyone escape. Garo tried to keep his composure and said to his men, Don't worry, you fools. We don't lose to a bunch of weak humans. But Light laughed and said to him, The one saying this is the weakest among you. Garo got agitated and said, What nonsense is this? Humans are known to be the weakest creatures. They have no energy or strength like the other races. Light raised his eyebrow and said, Then how come two of your men who are stronger than you have their heads rolling on the ground now? Garo said that must have been a mistake on their part, or laziness and stupidity. In a loud voice he said, Come on, let's get him. They all rushed at once, but Light didn't move from his spot. He closed his eyes and in seconds he was finishing them off one after another with a single blow each. Garo fell to the ground, unable to comprehend what had happened. Light stood over him and said, Is this your strength? You guys are nothing at all. He said to him, You think you're superior to humans. You're not even half of what you claim to be. Garo was dying of rage, so he decided to use his last resort. He grabbed a necklace he was wearing and broke it on the ground. Suddenly, a huge light emerged from it, and a giant monster of the Vernora type appeared at level 500. Garo shouted with all confidence and said, This is your end, Light. He kept laughing an evil laugh and boasting, saying, I'll have this monster finish you off. He told him that it is at level 500, meaning just one breath from it is enough to erase you from existence. But Light was standing in front of him with a strange calmness. He smiled at him and said, Level 500 is still very weak compared to me. Garo was startled and said, Have you gone mad? How can you say that? It's even stronger than me many times over and it's impossible for you to defeat it alone. In an arrogant voice he said, Kneel on your knees and beg me for mercy. Maybe after that I'll let you die an easy death. Light said to him, Okay, very well. Let me clarify the difference between you and me. He said to him, I won't move from my spot. Hit me with your strongest attack. Garo was enraged by his own arrogance and said to his men, Do you see this foolish kid? Who does he think he is? In a loud voice, he told his monster to attack him. The monster began to move and unleashed a terrifying energy, a strong light covering the entire place. It opened its mouth and launched an attack called Killer Beast's Howl. Its attack could destroy an entire fortress in a second. The explosion was literally terrifying. The ground cracked and dust covered everything. Garo kept laughing like a madman, saying, I finished him off. But when the smoke began to clear, his expression froze. Light was standing in the same place without a single scratch or a hair out of place. Light said to him calmly and with all sarcasm, Is this the attack you were so excited about? It's not even enough to warm up the air around me. He looked at the monster and said, You call this weak creature a Vernora? This can barely be called a small dog. Then he stretched out his hand and pulled out a magic card from his pocket and said, Let me show you now what a real Vernora looks like. He opened the card and suddenly a huge vortex of energy appeared, and a legendary giant wolf emerged from it. Its eyes glowed with blue light and the air itself froze everything around it. He said to him, Now this is a real monster. He told him that it is at level 9000. Garo literally froze in his place, and when the monster glanced in his direction, it just breathed once. And the wolf that Garo had summoned froze instantly and shattered like. Garo stood rooted to the spot, his expression completely frozen, literally unable to believe what his eyes were seeing. The monster he himself had summoned was wiped from existence by a single breath from the Fenrera. Garo breathed in fear and said, That's not possible, the monster you have. What is it? Light looked at him calmly and said, Don't be afraid, that monster was just a small demonstration. He put the staff back on his back and continued his talk, saying, I could have finished off your monster with my own hand without summoning anyone. He said to him, I'll show you now the difference between you and me clearly. He opened the status window in front of him and let Garo see for himself. Garo looked and his expression changed completely. His hand began to tremble. What was written in front of him was unnatural. Light's level was 9,999. He screamed, unable to believe that Light had that level, and kept saying, "This isn't real. Levels don't even reach that number." He began to swallow his saliva with difficulty, sweat pouring from him, and tears in his eyes. He said in fear, "You can't possibly be Light. You are an unnatural devil." But Light approached him and said, "Does it matter to you if I am Light or not? In the end, your end will be the same." Garo lost all hope. He threw his weapon on the ground and fell to his knees. He said in a broken voice, "Please forgive me. I was carrying out orders from my superiors. I didn't mean to harm you or even finish you off." He raised his head and kept pleading with him, saying, "I was wrong and I was foolish." He told him, "You are the true king of magic. Please let me live. Don't kill me here." Light looked at him with complete coldness and said, "Before I decide whether to forgive you or not, I have a few questions you must answer with complete honesty." Garo immediately agreed and nodded his head, saying, "I will do whatever you want." Light said to him, "First question, when your superiors ordered you to look for people named masters, what did you want them for?" Garo got confused and said, "I don't know what masters means. I was just carrying out the orders given." Light looked at him and said, "Then why, after you confirmed I wasn't one of the masters, did you decide to kill me?" Garo said in fear, "It wasn't me who decided. Those were orders from above. They told me we must erase your existence completely, but I don't know the reason." Light was silent for a moment and then he looked at Garo's followers and asked them, "Do you guys know anything about the masters?" Everyone replied in the same second, "Yes, we." Mai immediately moved and in the blink of an eye she cut them all in half with her sword and said in a terrifying voice, "Anyone who lies in front of Light will be punished with death." After she finished them off, Light looked at Goro and said to him with terrifying calmness, "I have one last question for you before I decide your fate, and if you lie, know that Mai will be able to tell the truth, and at that moment your end will be worse than death." Garo felt his body freeze, sweat dripping from everywhere, and knew that if he said something wrong, Mai would tear him apart. Light said to him, "Given your strong intuition, do you think I can win any war against the kings currently outside the dungeon?" Garo hesitated, and he looked very nervous. But in the end he said to him, "With your strength you could win at first truly. But after that you will lose because you are alone. War isn't just about individual strength, it's about armies, weapons, and an endless number of people, meaning, in the end you will be defeated." He expected Light to yell or punish him, but Light smiled and said, "I was sure you would say that and you are actually right." He took a step closer to him and said, "But let me show you something that might change your mind." He stretched out his hand and pulled out a magic card and suddenly light covered the entire place. When Garo opened his eyes again, he found himself in a huge throne hall. Its floor was made of marble and its walls of gold, with many, many armies in front of him. Garo was terrified and raised his hand to cover his face, not understanding where he was or what had happened. When he looked closely, he saw Light's real army. Thousands of fighters all standing in rows, their uniforms coordinated, and the aura around them was terrifying. Light walked with steady steps towards the throne, and when he arrived he said to them in a loud voice, "Display your levels." And in that moment all the soldiers revealed their energy. Garo froze in his place when he saw the numbers. Most of them were above level 5,000, and the weakest among them was 1,500. Garo's face literally turned pale, his eyes wide open, unable to believe what he was seeing in front of him. He said while trembling, "Their levels are all above 5,000. Even the weakest among them is stronger than all of our soldiers." Light said to him with all confidence, Now Garo, after you've seen my army with your own eyes, do you still think that war against the kings is impossible?" Garo couldn't even respond. His expression changed from fear, and he knew the answer was already clear. He said to him, "You won't just defeat them, you'll make shawarma out of them." Light smiled a cold smile and said to him, "I was sure of that. Now you've confirmed with your own eyes that victory is easy for me." He took a step then another closer to him and his voice became heavy, like the echo of a devil, and said to him, "Since you were honest with me, I will reward you for your honesty." Goro nodded his head quickly, and hope appeared on his face. He said, "You'll forgive me, you mean?" Light laughed a light laugh and said to him, "It's impossible for me to forgive you, of course, Garo." He said to him, "I won't kill you because killing you would be a great mercy for you." The laugh disappeared instantly, and the tone of his voice became dark as he continued, saying, "I will let you live, but you will wish for death every moment." And he ordered all his soldiers to prepare to go to the surface. I see Light on his way to his city. He was running enthusiastically towards his home, unable to wait to see his family and siblings after many years. But when he reached the peak of the valley overlooking his village, he found it completely ruined and destroyed. He tried to move forward a little to see more clearly, but the scene was so difficult that he fell to his knees. During his recent absence, the village had been attacked by an unknown force. He spent 6 months searching through the ruins and burying the dead respectfully, saddened that his village was in this state, but he was relieved that he didn't see the corpses of his siblings among the rubble. However, his luck was bad with his father and mother because they were not among the survivors. After Light finished mourning his father and mother, the fighter Gold told him they needed to get moving because they had been away from their kingdom for a long time. Nemo scolded Gold and told him not to be disgusting and that he shouldn't bother Light right now because Light needs to calm down as he is sad. Gold said he wanted to return to his comfortable bed and accused Nemo of hypocrisy because she also wanted to return and rest. Nemo replied, saying the complete opposite, and said that she was ready to stay by Light's side even if she had to sleep on the peak of the coldest mountain in the world. Gold told her, "You misunderstood me. I am also ready to do more than that for Light's sake, but I don't want Light to sleep in the cold and suffer." Nemo was convinced and agreed with him. Light cut them off and said, "Don't worry about accommodation. Just focus on gathering useful information for now." And Light admitted afterwards that their power could sweep the world without them even breaking a sweat. But it would be stupid to enter a war without any. He was almost sure that the destruction of his village was related to him being accused of being a master, meaning the master of magic. He wanted to know what a master means and why people are willing to shed blood for this title. He said that if he discovers that this whole matter is because of some greedy rich people seeking power, he will burn the whole world, destroy it and turn it to ash, and he will eat that ash for those who were the cause. Gold tried to calm him down and said that he understands his anger, but he must control his energy because the anger he releases could kill any ordinary human in an instant. Unexpectedly, he put on something called the Fool's Mask, which hides his true energy and covers his identity. Afterwards, he bid farewell to his parents' graves and said to them, "I'm sorry I couldn't save you." Then he, Gold, and Nemo began flying towards the city of Jez. Nemo was curious and asked Light what he plans to do when he arrives there. Gold told her to be careful while talking to him above the surface, because they are not in the dungeon now, and people might notice them. Light explained to her that it is dangerous to call him by his real name because that way his identity could be exposed, and that's why Light plans to use the name Dark as an alias while outside the dungeon. He also said that he would register himself in the Adventurers Guild under that name, and when he starts rising in rank, he will be able to gather more and more information from the senior members of the guild. After a while, Nemo saw the city of Dages from afar, and they said they don't need to fly over it so as not to attract attention, so they landed in the forest and decided to walk the rest of the way on foot. But Gold said that his shiny arm would make them stand out too much no matter how much they try to hide. While walking, they saw a carriage being robbed by a gang of dwarf thieves. The thieves ordered them to hand over their valuable belongings. The owner of the carriage begged them not to harm his son. A glint caught the corner of his eye, and when the dwarves saw them, they tried to rob them too, but it wasn't their day at all. After moments, the dwarves were tied up in the middle of the road, and the merchant and his son were very grateful to Light and offered to take Light and his friends to the city of Daisies as a token of gratitude. On the way, the merchant's son was talking with admiration about Gold and said he had never seen anyone defeat dwarves so easily. The merchant thought they were a famous group of adventurers, but Light said they hadn't even registered with the guild yet. The man was surprised and told them that they chose the right place because Dages has one of the largest adventurers guilds and is also close to the borders of the dwarf, elf, and human kingdoms, making it the largest suitable city for humans to live in. He told them that he runs a successful hotel there and invited them to stay as guests. When they arrived at the city of Dages, Light told the merchant to leave them at the gate so they could walk the rest of the way themselves. Gold and Nemo were seeing an above-ground city for the first time and were amazed by the number of weapon and armor shops there, but Light told them that this is normal because the dwarves are nearby, and also the dwarves are very skilled in blacksmithing. When they entered the guild, Nemo noticed that everyone from other races, when humans passed by, immediately stepped back, were afraid, and that humans were the least present. Light said that this is evidence that humans are treated with little respect here, but not as overtly as in other places. He went to register his name at the guild. The employee registered Light as an adventurer of rank F. Nemo objected and said that Light should be at least rank S. The employee said that all adventurers start from rank F, and no matter their skills or classes, they must start from this rank. Light apologized for Nemo's manner and agreed to register from rank F. He also decided to accept ordinary quests so he could get promoted later. As soon as they left, Nemo was very upset because she made Light apologize in her place, and Gold, of course, took the opportunity and kept teasing her. Before starting their quests, they decided to find a place to stay. He remembered that the merchant who brought them had a hotel, so they decided to go to him. The merchant was surprised when he saw Light and said, "How can I help you, hero?" Light said. "I have a special request. I want to rent the entire top floor of the hotel, and no one is allowed to enter, not even the staff." And he threw a bag full of gold on the table. The merchant was shocked, of course, when he saw all that money, and told him that this is way too much, it's almost 10 times the rent you want. But Light insisted on paying that amount normally without any hesitation, so the merchant immediately agreed and said he would prepare the rooms for him right away. When they went upstairs, Light used magic cards to prevent spying or even eavesdropping, so that no one could hear them and discover their secret, and thus he could rest a little while feeling secure. Nemo said that she knows he is very strong and that he came here to gather information, but this is dangerous for him and it would be better for him to return to the dungeon and let them complete the mission in his place. This talk greatly provoked Light, and he felt that she was saying he is weak and unable to take revenge himself. Her expression changed when she saw him getting irritated and quickly said to him, "Forgive me, I didn't mean it. I'm a wrong girl and I deserve to be hit now." But Light was very angry and Gold felt the tension, so he intervened to joke and lighten the mood and said to Nemo, "You don't understand what the pleasure of revenge means. The leader wants to take revenge with his own hands, and this is an honor, not anger, to get the rights of his father and mother who were killed." Gold's words made Light snap out of it and calm down a bit, so he went down and apologized to Nemo and told her that he knows she said that out of fear for him. Nemo also apologized and said she wants to renew her loyalty to him, so she lifted his leg and kept kissing it, which is, in their culture, the highest mark of respect for a ruler. But Light felt very embarrassed because he has hated this custom since he first summoned his followers. Even Gold said the situation was weird, especially since Nemo looked more happy than she should be while kissing his foot. The next morning, they prepared to go out and head towards the dungeon. People started looking at them because Gold's armor was shining like a star, and Nemo was very beautiful, while Light was wearing the mask that completely covered his face. People, of course, saw Light as strange, but this suited his new name, Dark. The queue at the dungeon gate was very long. Gold noticed that there were no elves there. Light told him that the elves and dwarves are feuding over the ownership of this dungeon, and that's why they avoid each other. Nemo praised Light and said that he always has a ready answer for any question that comes to our mind, but he asked her to move away a little because her chest was stuck to his back. She replied to him and said that she is protecting him and must stay close to him. At that moment they saw 3 people cutting the line with complete shamelessness, not caring about anyone. Nemo got very angry. When Light looked at them, he saw that the one carrying the bag was the servant, the one in the middle was a trained fighter but with many flaws, and the person in front was clearly an experienced fighter, and the heavy weapon hidden behind him showed that he was their leader. Of course, everyone standing in the queue was afraid to speak up, but Light is not the type to keep silent about his rights. The boy dared and his heart died, and they said that what you are doing is rude. The man got irritated that Light dared to talk to him. Light replied saying, "I'm talking to you because you cut in line." The man said, "Don't you know who I am? And how can a human like you talk?" Light said to him, "No, by God, I don't know who you are, but you are hiding under your clothes, and if you are really a famous person, it would be more appropriate for you to respect the line and stand in your queue." Gold and Nemo supported Light and told him to go to the back of the line. The fighter, whose name is Kito by the way, went crazy and tried to draw his sword, but his assistant, who was in the middle, stopped him and said, "You will cause chaos and ruin our plan, and if you draw your sword, it will cause great destruction." Kito suppressed himself and went to the front of the line, but he approached Light afterwards and threatened him, saying, "You will pay dearly for the embarrassment you caused." The humans around Light praised him for standing up to them and told him that they are tired of being treated as if we don't exist, and thanked him for speaking against discrimination. One of the beginners came to thank him and said, "We were afraid to start a fight, we're not up to it." Light said to them, "No need for thanks. Any normal person would have done the same." One of the beginners asked loudly, "Is Gold's armor really made of gold?" His friend scolded him, but he was insistent on knowing because he knew that those who scolded him also wanted to know if the armor was gold or not. Gold was about to answer, but Nemo cut him off and said, "This is definitely not gold. Gold is soft and cannot be used for armor." The beginners apologized for their friend's curiosity. Gold laughed and said to them, "This gold color is the most suitable for a shiny knight like me." The beginners asked them afterwards if this was their first time entering the dungeon. Light said to them, "Yes," and asked them how they knew. They told him, "Because you don't have camping gear, which means it's your first time." After moments the guard called their turn. The beginners said goodbye to them and entered. When Light's group entered, he said to himself, "Maybe we need to get some fancy bags so we don't look too much like beginners." When they entered inside, this was the first dungeon Light had entered since the incident. The dungeon is full of mana energy, and the deeper you go down into it, the stronger it becomes, and this creates new and strong monsters and traps. Light used an invisibility spell so that the enemies wouldn't know their location, and they all flew toward the second floor. At the same time, the elf Kido, who had argued with him above, was venting his anger on some giant frogs, shouting and being extremely upset, saying, "How dare a human talk to me like that?" He said that he is a legendary hero from the elf kingdom, and that he has the power of the master in his blood, and that's why he deserves respect. He said that his level is 1500, and that this is not enough, and he wants to become stronger to destroy all those who mocked him. The world with him said that he understands and said that he will use his research to help him increase his power more. Meanwhile, Light and his friends reached the third floor after finishing off a group of huge orcs and said, "That's enough. We have enough evidence for the guild." Also, he was completely dirty and wanted to bathe. As soon as Nemo heard the word bath, she said to him enthusiastically, "Leave it to me, I will take care of you and guide you to the shower perfectly." But Light didn't care about her words and felt that she is a silly, foolish girl who says anything. While they were flying on their way, they saw the beginners who were before them at the gate, trapped by a group of goblins, but they tried to encourage themselves and actually managed to finish them off. Light went to them and began to praise them in their strength. Suddenly, they heard a commotion coming from the forest. A group of wolves started running towards them. The beginner said, "Let's run away quickly. We won't be able to fight them." But Light said to them, "The wolves are not the problem. What's coming after them is the real danger." At that moment, he looked ahead, and when he saw what was coming out of the forest, it was a huge four-legged insect, a killer creature known as the Mantis the Mighty. So I wonder, what does this insect intend to do with Light and the beginners? And of course the answer is known, that Light can crush it very easily, but let's continue our story and see Light and his friends return to the guild again to hand over the monster gems they collected. We see Nemo here arguing with the employee and saying to her, "It's not fair that my Master Dark remains in this rank. He should be promoted to a higher rank." The employee says to her, "Well, make me do it now. These are our rules and we can't violate them." She tells her, "We made an exception and promoted him from rank F to rank D, and we can't do more than that." Nemo says to her, "This rank is not worthy of my master at all. He should be promoted directly to rank S." The employee says to her, to get ranks, he must perform a heroic or legendary feat to be promoted. Light is here confused and doesn't understand what a heroic or legendary feat means. When he returns to the inn, he has the mission that, if he completes it, he will be promoted to rank S. The mission is that he must kill the adventurer killer. Gold tells him that this mission is more than enough for a promotion, but Nemo says to him, "We don't have any information about this killer yet to know his whereabouts." They suggest to Light that he use a search card to locate him, but Light says to them, "The card skill is a random skill, and I can't choose which card I summon." Nemo says to him, "What if we summon reinforcements from the abyss so we can find his location?" But Light starts thinking about the killer and says, "Why is he only targeting humans?" Suddenly Light feels that someone broke the barrier and is sneaking up on them. He sees a magic gate opening and Mia falls from it. He immediately grabs her and is surprised that the bracelet he gave her as a gift is broken and fell to the ground. After that, they place her on the bed and hear her saying, "We have to run now and inform Master Dark." Of course, Light doesn't understand what she's saying, so he starts using a healing spell on her to treat her. After healing her, he uses a hypnotic magnetism skill to be able to control her mind and learn about the events that happened to her. We learn that when Mia and her friends were in the abyss, a group of adventurers came to them and warned them that they must leave immediately because there is a ruthless killer who specifically targets killing humans. They tell them that he is very dangerous, his power is great, and no one has been able to stop him so far. After the adventurers warn them, they leave them and go away. At that moment, Mia and her friends decide to escape immediately before nightfall, so the killer doesn't appear and finish them off. Teasing, and indeed they start moving, but they walk for a very long time, and after a while they feel tired and night falls upon them. So they decide to camp for the night and continue their journey in the morning. But by coincidence, Keith and his assistant come to them, and they are of course the ruthless killers who eliminate humans. The first time Mia and her friends see them, they immediately warn them with good intentions and say to them, "Be careful, you must move from here immediately." Keith says to them, "What exactly is the problem?" They say to him, "There is a ruthless killer who kills humans. But we told you to warn you because he might be targeting you." Keith's assistant says to him, "We should have been more cautious. This matter shouldn't spread too much among the adventurers. It's clear the Adventurers Guild has tightened its grip lately and can find out anything quickly." Their leader, Olu, says, "What are you talking about? I don't understand from your words." Keith says to him, "We are the ruthless killers who eliminate humans." Keith draws his sword and says to them, You are the last of the vermin to be killed right now immediately. Of course they are all scared and terrified and ask Mia to escape alone. They tell her, we will keep him busy until you escape. At that moment Alu decides to attack Keith. Keith feels that this boy Alu is underestimating him, so he immediately gives him a slash with his sword, cutting open his stomach. Of course, when his friends see him fall to the ground bleeding, they rush to attack Keith, but Keith gives them their share too, and each one of them receives a powerful blow. But Rowdy immediately stands up and calls out to Mia, run away now. At that moment, his friend stands with him to help him, and the two of them rush to attack. But Mia calls out to them and says, come back, you can't defeat. At that moment, Keith gets angry because they decided to challenge him anyway, but his assistant calls out to him and says, don't kill them, I want them alive for my experiments. But Keith doesn't listen to him and delivers a powerful blow to each one, finishing them off. The assistant yells at him, why did you kill them? I wanted them alive for my experiments. Keith says to him, I got too angry because they wanted to challenge me. Besides, it doesn't matter that they died, we still have one alive who hasn't died yet. And he approaches her. Keith decides to assault her, but his assistant says to him, enough, call me so I can start my experiments on her. He keeps boasting about himself and says to Mia, you have the honor that one of the elves assaults you, and you should be happy with something like this. Mia, of course, is very scared and terrified and doesn't know how to react. But suddenly her brother Alu stands up again and calls out to Mia, run away, I'm here to protect. Immediately, Keith's assistant is happy that Alu isn't dead and is still alive, and he asks Keith not to kill him because his experiments will be ruined. And Alu here looks at them smiling and tries to reassure her, saying, I will know how to deal with him. The most important thing now is for you to run away immediately. And indeed, she decides to listen to him and starts running. Keith's assistant says to him, catch her before she goes and reports to the guild and we get exposed. He says, killing these roaches is easier than catching them. He decides to run after her to catch her, but Alu calls out to him and says, where are you going, man Keith? I am your opponent now, and I won't let you catch my sister. He remembers the advice that Gold gave him when he told him that the shield is for fighting and for defending with it. Alu loves to apply the advice he receives, so he throws his sword at him to distract him and immediately runs towards him. With the shield in his hand, he delivers a very strong blow to his face, knocking him to the ground. Of course, this shield blow enrages Keith immensely and makes him literally hate himself. Alu keeps laughing because his plan succeeded and he managed to hit him. But Keith immediately uses his legendary sword and delivers a magical slash that pierces through his body. He keeps yelling at him, how dare a lowly human like you lay a hand on a great being like me? But Alu still has some life left in him, and Keith goes to finish him off, but his assistant intervenes and says, I kiss your brain, man, leave him alone. I told you I need him for my experiments. He says to him, go catch Mia now immediately before she escapes and reports to the guild and exposes us. We see Mia as she is escaping, but Keith uses the legendary sword and creates barriers in front of her to prevent her from escape. He says to her, we won't keep playing this game of cat and mouse. Stop running away from me. He says to her, you should be happy to be standing before the great hero who will rule the human world. And he shows her the legendary Elf King's sword, from which he can create as many copies as he wants. At that moment, Mia feels that there is no use in escaping and decides to confront him since she is a sorcerer. She says, my brother and my friends sacrificed themselves for me, and I can't be a coward. She starts using her ice magic and attacks Keith, but he is able to easily deflect her attack. She had succeeded with that attack in distracting him and starts to escape again, but he manages to catch up to her, strikes her, and knocks her to the ground. Keith keeps boasting about himself, thinking he is the brave, heroic, amazing hero. But Mia says to him, you can't possibly be a heroic legend because a heroic legend never kills anyone and always helps humans, and anyone in need stands by him. She says to him, a heroic legend must be someone like Master Dark. Keith then remembers moments of bullying when he was in the elf world. All the elves used to bully him because he was weak and didn't complete his evolution. This is the reason that gave him his psychological complex and made him extremely arrogant. He gets angry and uses a powerful magic attack to kill her. At that moment, Mia grabs the bracelet she received from Light and says, I wish I had met him to warn him about all that is happening. The bracelet immediately lights up. At that moment, we return to Light, who has learned everything and the reason for the mess Mia is in now. Of course, he is upset and extremely angry. He asks Nemo and Gold to start moving immediately. It's clear that Keith is in for a rough night and will get a proper beating. We return to Keith's assistant, who is treating Elu so he can catch him before he dies and perform experiments on him. Keith comes to him afterwards, so he says to him, did you catch the girl who was escaping? But Keith says to him, she disappeared and I don't know where she went. I thought she came to you. The assistant says, damn it, we are exposed now. If this matter reaches the guild, they will immediately report it to the Elf Kingdom. And when the Elf Kingdom finds out that you stole their legendary sword, they will report it to the great leader, and he will come to finish you off, him and his followers. We learn that the leader of the Elf Kingdom has a power level of 3000, meaning he could grab this Keith and turn him into fried potatoes. Keith starts to get scared and terrified, but his assistant says to him, I don't want you to be afraid. Once I finish my research, I will be able to unleash your full potential, and you will become the strongest person in the world. Keith starts to feel encouraged again, but suddenly Light appears and says to him, you won't have time to celebrate too much. Of course they are shocked and don't understand when Light appeared. Keith says, I didn't feel his presence even though my power is 1500. He looks at Alu's friends and finds that they have died, but Gold says to him, Alu is still alive and breathing. Light immediately approaches him and uses healing magic to treat him. After that, Light yells at Keith and says to him, why did you do this to them? He says, they didn't do anything to deserve this horrible crime. He says, their dream was very simple. Their goal was to make Mia happy. He says, if circumstances were different, they could have been my friends. Keith's assistant intervenes and says, you misunderstand the situation. I was just using healing magic to treat them. But Keith reassures them and says, don't be afraid. I won't report you to the guild because you are my prey now. He gets angry and says to them, I will not show you mercy, and I will make you wish for death right now from the torture you will see from me. Light starts to approach Keith. At that moment, Keith is annoyed by the look Light is giving him and says, I don't need a lowly human like you looking at me with a despising look. Keith gets extremely angry and leaps into the air, descending upon him with a powerful strike from his legendary sword. But Light parries the blow with ease and says to him, is that all you've got? Is this your final attack? This enrages Keith even more and he keeps attacking him with his sword, delivering many blows. But Light easily parries all his attacks. Of course, his assistant is stunned that Keith is attacking with the legendary sword, and this annoying guy can deal with all these attacks. We see Gold and Nemo saying that Keith is acting like a wild donkey and isn't using his brain at all in the fight. Finally, when Light gets fed up, he parries his attack and delivers a very powerful blow with his staff to his stomach, sending him flying. Then Keith stands up, enraged, and immediately uses the legendary elf sword and uses his magical power. He keeps attacking Light with powerful magical strikes, but Light constantly dodges his attacks. Gold says that Keith's magical attacks are strong, but they will never pose any danger to Light. Suddenly Keith disappears and reappears suddenly behind Light to surprise him with a powerful attack. But Light anticipates his attack and parries his strike. Keith is shocked by Light's power and says to him, "You're cheating in the fight. You told us you were a sorcerer, but it turns out you're a knight, because no sorcerer can dodge the attacks of my legendary sword." Light says to him, "I am in fact a sorcerer, not a knight." Keith says to him, "Impossible. No sorcerer can last more than a minute against me." So Light tries to prove to him that he is a sorcerer and immediately summons thousands of ice arrows above him. Keith is surprised that he summoned all these ice arrows without uttering any incantation. When he attacks him with his magic, he is surprised that the ice arrows block all the strikes. And when Keith changes the direction of his magic, he is surprised that the ice arrows have formed a complete shield around Light to protect him from any attack in any direction. Keith says what is happening is not natural at all. It is written that I should be the heroic legend, and I shouldn't struggle at all against a small kid like Light. He says, "I now hold the legendary elf sword, which once belonged to the Elf King." Keith is first surprised when he learns that he possesses the sword of the Elf King. He says to him, "Do you know who the Elf King is?" Keith says, "Then you must mean me, because I now possess half of his power within me. So tell me, what is the story of the Elf King?" What is the story of the Light asking Kaito if he truly knows the King of the Thousand. Kaito tells him that he is from his lineage and carries his blood in power, meaning you could simply say he is his assistant. Kaito continues to pressure Light, telling him that he is not trash like him and that his blood is from the lineage of the King of the Thousand. When Light learns that Kaito knows the legendary leader of the Thousand, he tells Gold and Nemo to finish this battle quickly to capture them and take them to their prison, because he wants to know a lot of information about the King of the Thousand from Kaito. Then Nemo and Gold stand in front of Kaito's assistant, who says to them, "What's up guys, you scared me. But anyway, I'm not into problems or fights. I'm just a researcher and I'm not involved in anything. But if you want to cause trouble and worry, I'm ready to fight you with my monsters." Suddenly, the enchanted monsters behind him begin to reveal themselves, and they are giant monsters fused with humans. He tells them that he managed to fuse humans with a group of giant savage lizards to create what they see now. He tells them that through this method he was able to surpass the maximum limits of humans after fusing them with monsters to use them in combat. But he tells them that they are still in the experimental stage. But there's no problem having a battle to test their strength. He keeps boasting, telling them that he is the greatest inventor in the world, and that he needs a very large number of humans to complete his experiments on them and reach the absolute power he is searching for. When Light finds him mocking humans, he tells him that clearly you've lost your mind. He asks Nemo and Gold to finish off these monsters quickly to free the fused humans from their suffering. When he looks at one of the monsters, he finds it is one of the adventurers he had met before. When Kaito's assistant feels they are making fun of him, he tells them that clearly you don't appreciate the greatness of my experiments, and now you will see the power of the monsters I create. Immediately, the monsters emerge and attack them, but Nemo and Gold manage to hit them with their weapons and think they have managed to defeat them. But Kaito's assistant tells them, "Don't mock my monsters so much. It's impossible for them to lose that easily." We notice that the monsters have the ability to regenerate and begin to rise again. Using the legendary sword, continues to attack Light and tells him not to zone out so much because their battle isn't over yet. Then one of the monsters attacks Nemo, but she dodges his attack and stabs him with the dagger she has in her hand. After that, she attacks him and delivers a strong blow, but the monster still regenerates and continues to attack her, but she still dodges his attack. Gold here mocks her and says, "Can't you finish off this monster or what?" She says to him, "Do you think you finished off the monster in front of you?" He says to her, "I'm still just in the warm-up state." After that, he draws his sword and attacks the monster with a very strong blow, but the monster still regenerates after Gold's strike and attacks him, but Gold blocks his attack with his shield. Quito's assistant keeps mocking them and tells them that their victory will be almost impossible and that it's better for them to surrender. He promises them that when he performs experiments on them, he won't make them feel any pain at all. This talk from Kaito's assistant provokes them greatly, and they decide to use their legendary power. Indeed, they release magic from the weapons they are holding and strike the monsters with a very strong. Kaito's assistant keeps laughing at them and tells them that no matter how hard they try, it's impossible to defeat them. But he is shocked that his monsters are not regenerating this time, and indeed begin to disappear completely. He runs to them to make sure, but Nemo immediately trips him hard with a kick below the belt and says, "Shut up, you've given us a headache. Let's take you and go." We return to Light, who is using ice arrows and attacking Kaito, but Kaito dodges them at the last moment. Kaito says to him, "Are you planning to run away and leave the battle? Weren't you the one saying that whoever runs away is a coward and doesn't deserve to live?" Here Kaito remembers the provoking looks from Mia's brother when he was laughing at him after hitting him, and he gets extremely angry then. He tells him, "I hate all of you human trash and you don't deserve to live at all." He grabs the legendary sword and unleashes his maximum power. Indeed, we see a legendary magical aura emanating from the sword, and Kaito is shocked by the magical aura coming from the legendary thousands. Then Kaito says to him, "What's wrong, are you scared or what?" and immediately attacks him with it. But Kaito dodges the attack quickly and notices that the sword has become much stronger and that his mana energy has increased strangely. He says that he merged many types of magic to release this power. Then Kaito keeps mocking Light and says to him, "This time you're running away from me. Come and face me. Show me if you can defeat me." He continues to attack him, and we see the sword literally transform into something like a glowing whip, and he tries to leave Light in any way, moves with great speed, and no attack from the sword he has can touch him. Then Light says to him, "Your power is interesting, but unfortunately, it still won't work against me." So Kaito gets extremely angry and says to him, "Okay then, let me hold the sword I have and see if it will affect you or not." He is angry and upset that he can't touch him with the sword he has, so he is forced to increase the magical power to the highest level. He flies into the air and descends on Kaito with a very strong blow, resulting in a powerful explosion. He thinks he has managed to finish off Light, but the shock here is that he finds Light standing in his place unmoved and the sword literally cannot touch him. Light says to him, "I told you your skill is good, but it's not enough to defeat me at all." Kaito is literally shocked and doesn't know what is happening in front of him. He then continues to attack Kaito with the legendary sword, but not a single strike can touch Light. He says, "How can the legendary thousand sword not defeat a human who has no importance?" Finally, when Light gets fed up with him, he strikes the magical aura with a very strong blow, stops it, and delivers a strong blow that knocks him to the ground. He then approaches Kaito and says to him, "I will make you see death with your own eyes, but you won't reach it." He begins to get scared and terrified and approaches Kaito, continually apologizing to him and saying, "Please don't kill me. I'm ready to tell you everything you." He tells him, "I was a candidate for the general commander of the Thousand Knights, and if you want to know any information about this legendary thousand sword, I'm ready to." Kaito says to him, "Isn't it a shame for someone from the lineage of the legendary thousand hero to be so scared and terrified? You think about running away and leaving the battle? You should never surrender no matter the result and keep fighting until you die." He tells him, "My friends Ya, Gimra, and Clay are much braver than you because they didn't surrender and kept fighting with you until they died." He reveals his face and says to him, Get up and fight me to the last breath, and don't be a coward. But Kaito is very scared and terrified and says, it's impossible for this to be a human. Immediately he says, screw you, and tries to escape quickly, but Kaito immediately uses a magical skill and strikes his leg, knocking him to the ground. After that, he approaches him and says, you can't possibly be a legendary hero, you're just trash, exactly as I told you. After that, he approaches the grave of Gimmer and Rody and decides to bury them. Then he will take you to give to his sister Mia when she wakes up to see him. So when Kaito and his assistant say to Light, what about us then? Did you forget us or what? He says to them, no, of course I didn't forget you. I just need to finish the task I have with these two. And after that, I will take you to my prison because I have many questions for you. After that, he uses the instant transmission skill and takes them to his prison. When Kaito first opens his eyes, he says, where are we exactly? He is surprised to find themselves in the deepest and most dangerous prison in the world. He says that this prison is far from Daga City, and how did we reach it so quickly? Light's female assistants begin to welcome him because he is their monster and he hasn't come for a while. They ask him about the two he brought with him and say, who are these? He tells them that these are guilty people who killed and tortured a very large number of humans, and he brought them here to settle his account with them. When Light's assistants learn that they are guilty and also bothered their leader Light, they get extremely angry. Each one begins to threaten them. One says, I will cut you with my sword, and another says, I will use my magic to completely destroy you. They literally threaten them and want to make shawarma out of them. Koto and his assistant are literally terrified and will do it to themselves until Light intervenes and calms them down because they are extremely angry. He tells them, I want to get information from them first. After that, do whatever you want with them. So they become even more scared than before, and each one of them starts blaming the Kaito then says to him that the researcher tricked me and told me he would release my power. The researcher says to him that Kaito was blackmailing me and was exploiting me, and I didn't even know him originally. Light says to them, no matter what you do, I can never forgive you at all because you are calling humans insects and killing them without any mercy. Just be patient with me. I will finish the task I have and return to you later. Mia opens her eyes and finds Light in front of her. She says, where am I? He tells her, you are now in my house, and reassures her that she is okay. He tells her that her brother, thank God we saved him and he is recovered. When she asks him about Gimmer and Rody, he gives her locks of their hair, and she then knows that they died, of course. Mia cannot control herself and keeps crying, so he feels sad and leaves her, walking away upset with himself. He says, meaning after I obtained this great power, I still failed to save my friends. After that, he returns to the guild, and the guild learns that he completed the required mission. Then they agree to promote him to rank C. After that, we return to Mia and her brother Yu, who is now recovered, and they begin to thank Light and his friends. Yu says to him, I am very grateful that you helped us for the second time. Light is surprised when he learns that they will no longer be adventurers and will return to their village, and this is of course after their friends died. So Light says to them, meaning you don't intend to join any other party? Mia says, no party anymore, no party at all. We're done, thank you, sir. He says to her, well, what about the magic school you wanted to join? She says to him, I will continue studying from my city until God makes it easy then. She thanks Light after that and says, I am confident we will meet again. As they are leaving, Light looks at them feeling very sad, so Gold says to him, I don't want you to be sad, they will surely achieve their dream one. Light says to Gold, after I finish my revenge and reveal myself, then I will go to them again, take them and we will go visit our friends who died. After that, he returns again and says to the assistants, what did you do? Did you interrogate them or not yet? They say to him, we interrogated them and also used interrogation magic to make sure all the information they are saying is correct, and there isn't any wrong information. After that, Light learns that Kaito is one of the followers of the White Knight's commander, and that this White Knight's commander also hates humans and has committed many massacres, so he knows that he is their next target. After that, Light asks about Kaito and the assistant with him. A magical gate opens and the two of them are inside it, tied up. After that, Light uses a very powerful legendary card called Death's Plaything, which consists of monsters or ghosts. Immediately these monsters and ghosts attack them, kill them and finish them off. Then Light asks E about his plan. So she says to him, don't worry, the plan is ready and everything is arranged. And she says to him, we are ready to take your revenge from the dwarf Sasha, but first we will capture the White Knights because they will provide us with a lot of information we need in the future. And the deputy of the White Knights is Sasha's fiancé, so he will be very tasty bait to lure him to us. So Light says to her, may God enlighten you. It seems you've prepared for everything. Then we go to the Kingdom of 1,000 and see Sasha talking with her fiancé. She is telling him about Light and how much he was suffering when they were torturing him and wanted to finish him off. So he says to her, we must eliminate all human settlements, and that he enjoys killing them very much. And of course, Sasha is very happy hearing this talk. But Light is also smiling and says to her, we'll see who will be laughing in the end. We continue our story and see Sasha talking with her maid, telling her how wonderful and enjoyable the meeting with her fiancé Michael was and that she was very happy with him. So the maid says to her, you must get ready for the wedding ceremony and buy a nice dress for yourself to be the most beautiful one. And she says to her, I am confident you will be the most beautiful couple in the whole world. Suddenly their carriage stops and we find out it hit a human who was carrying goods, and his boss, of course, who is from the 1,000, keeps hitting and insulting him. At that time, Sasha is very annoyed by this human and says that humans are always useless and must all be eliminated. And while she is sitting and daydreaming, she notices Light passing by her side. So she's immediately shocked and says, is that really Light, the one I killed? So she opens the door and runs after him, and she is of course not believing herself and saying, how is he still alive after I finished him off? And she tries to catch up to him quickly, but she reaches a dead end and can't find any trace of him at all. And she says it's impossible for that to be Light. These must be hallucinations and I must be very tired. But as soon as she turns her back, she finds a message on the wall written that he wants to meet her atop the giant tower, and the message is signed by Light. So she is literally shocked and stands frozen in place, stunned, and keeps staring. The maid comes to reassure her, and we see Sasha here very upset and also afraid, and she says if my administration finds out that I didn't kill Light and that I was lying to them and that he is still alive, then they will punish me severely and humiliate me completely because they will think I was lying. At the same time, we see Light and Yaoi standing above, watching her as she breaks down. Leave this matter to us. And she says to him, I am ready to torture her and make her see stars in broad daylight, and I'll make you get your revenge from her exactly as you want. So Light is very happy and says to her, all right, I'll leave this matter to you, handle it. Then we go to the palace of the White Knights and see two of the knights tying a human to a tree and stabbing him with knives, literally torturing. And of course they keep mocking humans, bullying them, and saying, we enjoy torturing them, even if they are brothers, because we are better than them. And there is one of the White Knights who is literally perverted and always doesn't like to kill human girls, so they start arguing with each other until their commander yells at them, and they then feel a strong magical aura, and he says to them this is not the time for playing and joking, and immediately asks them to finish off the human they are torturing. And indeed one of the knights immediately blows his brains out and finishes him off instantly. Then the commander talks with the knight who likes human girls and says to him, you cannot be involved with any of them because our blood is pure and must not be contaminated with human blood. So he says, I would never get involved with a human girl. I just like to spend time with them for amusement, nothing more. Then they talk later about Kaido, who betrayed them and stole the legendary sword of 1,000, and they say that he lost to a human and must be eliminated. So their commander says to them, we cannot insult him like that because in the beginning and the end he was one of the White Knights. And he says to them, I will investigate this matter myself. And he says to them, we must investigate the identity of the person who managed to defeat him because there are many rumors saying he is from the humans. Then we go to Sasha, who is sleeping, and suddenly she hears a loud noise. Suddenly, we find a huge giant tower starting to emerge from the middle of the forest, and we find the assistant, Ichika, standing atop the tower and saying that everything is now ready for revenge. Sasha goes towards the window, and as soon as she looks, she is shocked by this giant tower, and she immediately remembers Light's message asking her to meet him atop the tower's summit. Then we go to a carriage driver from the 1,000 race, with a group of child hostages with him. Suddenly he is shocked when a huge monster from the forest comes out at him, and he says, how did this monster get here? And he doesn't understand anything, so he gets scared and runs away. And the monster then approaches the children, and God knows best if it will eat them or what it will do to them. And the carriage owner goes to his guild and keeps talking with his colleagues, and they are surprised, saying, did the forest bring the monsters here? And we find out that because of the giant tower that Light built, all the monsters fled the forest and gathered in places close to them. And we find the guild posting a new mission, and its goal is to explore this strange giant tower that no one knows anything about and how it appeared so suddenly. Light is of course standing and watching them all talking about the giant tower, and he is the one who plans something like this to attract attention to him. Suddenly, a group of the 1,000 notice Nemo and are very impressed with her, so they go and say to her, what do you think about going out with us today or joining our team? So she says to them, I won't join you. And she says to them, I am here in the service of Lord Dark. Then Light says to them, as you heard, then rely on God and don't annoy us any more than this. So they get angry. How dare a human talk to us in this manner? and one of them decides to attack him. So immediately Light uses a lightning spell and knocks them to the ground. Immediately they get scared and say, how can he use magic without saying its incantation? And Light is happy that everyone is talking about him now and says to Nemi and Gold, the plan is going exactly as I want. Then we see a group of 1,000 on their way to explore the giant tower. As usual, they have a human hostage with them to amuse themselves with and use as bait if a monster appears in front of them. And they say, we are thinking of camping in the forest today, and if we don't find any food, we might roast this girl and eat her because humans taste very good. The girl of course is scared as she hears this talk, but suddenly the giant monster that appeared before appears suddenly behind them, immediately eats one and finishes him off, and the snake in the monster's tail finishes off the other two. Then we see this monster approaching the little girl, and the girl is of course scared and feels she's going to be eaten now, but the monster just sniffs her a bit and leaves her and walks away. After that, a group of humans come laughing and mocking and say, we completed the mission as you requested. The girl is scared and says, I can't believe I got my freedom only to find some losers like these. But strangely, these humans help the girl and pour a magical substance on her that heals her from all the wounds she has. And we find out that Ioki is the one who sent that monster into the forest to finish off the 1,000 and help any human present there. And E comes and says to her, what's the news? Reassure me, this is the first time I see Light assigning a task for you to do. And Ioki is of course happy with the task Light gave her and says to her, everything is fine and I don't need any help from you. So she says to her, Light asked us to help you with anything you need. And she is very annoyed by this matter and keeps thinking and says, is Light really testing us and seeing how our loyalty to him is? And will we really carry out all his orders or not? And she says, I wonder what Light will do to us if we make a mistake in carrying out his orders. And AB thinks about going to warn the rest of Light's assistants, so that none of them make any mistakes at all. So Ioki says to her, you're overthinking and it's better for you to do what Light wants from you without much talk. So she says to her, I just want to understand the nature of my task. So Ioki says to her, I don't want to understand anything. Any task Lord Light requests from me, I will carry it out without any thinking or hesitation. So she says to her, what do you mean, that I don't have loyalty to Lord Light? So she says to her, I don't know then, everyone to themselves. And she gets very annoyed by her way of talking and says to her, by the way, I'm stronger than you and can finish you off. So Ioki says to her, I haven't found anyone stronger than me until now, and if you want to test our strength, I have no objection. But suddenly Ioki's assistants talk to her and say to her, we delivered the humans to their families exactly as you requested. And the children of course thank them for their help. Then we see Iji deciding to leave Ioki and walk away, and she says to her, I really enjoyed talking with you. Then we go to Sasha, who is sitting in front of Light's message, and she says, I can't go to the tower alone because the forest is full of monsters whose power level is above 1,000. But at the same time she is afraid that the White Knights will start moving, and if they find out Light is still alive, they will humiliate her. And she says, there is no solution for me, except to reach the tower first. And she says, if I see Light there this time, I will finish him off and make sure he dies by myself. And we go to the White Knights meeting and see them sitting in front of the Queen, talking and deciding to send a group of knights to explore the tower. But the commander of the knights says to the advisor, we cannot risk the White Knights because we don't have enough information about the giant tower. And we also haven't studied the nature of the monsters present. And he says to the advisor, clearly you've become senile and don't know how to act anymore, and your suggestion is impossible to accept. At that time, the Queen of the Thousand says, my son is right, and the safety of the knights is more important than exploring the giant tower. Then the commander of the knights sits with his mother and says to her, thank you for your support, but I cannot send a group of white knights there without having sufficient information. And of course, they are surprised by the sudden appearance of this giant tower without any prior warning. And he says to his mother, do you think the Dark Lord made it? And he says to her, I heard legends saying the Dark Lord would be from the humans. So his mother says to him, I don't want you to be afraid. As long as our goal is to eliminate the humans, then it's impossible to give the Dark Lord a chance to be one of them. So he says to her, we must not waste time and eliminate the human race so that we can rule the world. Then we return to Light, who is walking in the forest and finds a very large number of adventurers beginning to set up tents and prepare to accept the mission to explore the tower. Among them are the two that Light hit, and they seem extremely resentful of him. Light is happy that he attracted everyone's attention so they know there are humans present here. Suddenly Sasha appears and is following the sound of Light's voice, and she immediately stops him and says to him, who are you exactly? Identify yourself. Nemo and Gold grab their weapons and prepare to fight, but Light calms them down and says to them, this is Sasha, our target. And he says to them, I don't want anyone to move or do anything without my permission. Then Light turns to talk to her and says to her, you mean me? So Sasha says, yes, I want to know who you are. Remove the mask on your face. Nemo gets very annoyed and says to her, how dare you talk to my master in this manner? But Sasha doesn't care about Nemo and insists that Light remove his mask. So Light says to her, this mask covers them any burns on my face, and apologizes to her, saying he cannot remove the mask. So Sasha immediately gets angry and slaps him on the face, knocking the mask to the ground. And with Before Sasha meets Light, she hires 2 adventurers from the elf race to accompany her on a forest exploration mission. She tells them, I paid you a lot to come with me, and I'd appreciate it if you followed my orders without any objection. She says she knows they are strong, with levels above 300, and they will surely help her explore the forest. Suddenly, she hears a voice calling her name. She looks ahead and sees Light and says, is it really him? Is that the Light I've been looking for? Light says, I didn't expect to meet her this quickly. He remembers everything she did to him 3 years ago, but he says to himself, I must keep my composure because my time for revenge hasn't come yet. We return from the flashback. After Sasha removes the mask from Light, she is genuinely surprised that Light has many burns on his face and doesn't recognize him as the Light because of the burns. She says to him, cover your face. Your appearance is ugly and disgusting. Light apologizes to her and says, I told you I wear this mask to hide the burns on my face, and says he can't remove it. Sasha doesn't realize it's the Light because of the burns and says to him, cover your face. You look horrible and disgusting. Light apologizes and says, I told you I wear this mask to hide the burns on my face. After Sasha leaves, Light says, my trick worked. I managed to use illusion magic to deceive her into thinking I had many burns on my face. He then thanks Gold and Nemo for keeping their composure and not acting recklessly. We see Light is very upset with himself for not realizing Sasha's true nature when he first met her 3 years ago. He continues on his way into the forest. We see the 2 adventurers who are upset with Light after he humiliated them. They are watching him from afar and follow him into the forest to get revenge. When Light is running in the forest, he notices they are still following him. He says to them, be careful, if you keep following me, you will die soon. They say to him, we're following you to take revenge and finish you off, and your words won't scare us. Light says to them, I warned you and you are free to choose. But they still don't stop running after him. Finally, when Light gets fed up, he is forced to stop and says to Gold and Nemo, let's see what they want. We see the adventurers are very tired from running and say to him, we were going to keep chasing you and never let you go. But Light says to them, I am very impressed by your courage. Even though I warned you that you would die, you didn't give up and kept chasing me. They get annoyed by his arrogant tone and say to him, how can a lowly human like you talk to elves in this manner and be so confident? They say, you should be the one afraid of us because we will finish you now. Of course, they are holding their weapons and preparing to attack him. Light feels they are hopeless and calls out to Mira saying, finish them off. They say to him, are you talking to yourself? Your tricks won't work on us. But suddenly they are shocked to feel a presence behind them and see a giant girl with huge fists. It is Mira who is extremely angry and says to them, how dare you speak to my master like that? She says to them, get ready because your end is now, and you will die by my hand. Of course, they are terrified of her and don't know how she appeared. Suddenly, her giant fists grab them both and proceed to devour them. After she finishes them off, Light thanks her and says, I'm sorry I troubled you and gave you extra work. Mira approaches him and says, no, of course not, master. You are our leader and I am ready to carry out anything you ask of me. She says, I am ready to swallow tens of thousands of fighters just for you to be pleased with me and love me. Gold looks at Mira and says, this is the first time I've seen her so terrifying. She was always super cute before. Then the rest of Light's servants arrive and say, if we were in Mira's place, we are ready to do anything he asks, and no one can refuse his orders ever. This servant is named Ice Heat, and she has brought a group of servants to receive Light. The fighter Jack arrives soon after and says, it's been a while since I last saw you all. Since I'm your big brother, I can't let my little siblings fight alone. We are introduced to the servants who have arrived. Ice Heat, the fighter Mira, the fighter Jack, and the fighter Suzu. Light welcomes them and says, it's been a long time since I saw you and I'm happy you're here. He says, I'm sorry we had to meet in the forest. They say to him, we are ready to meet you anywhere you are because it's an honor for us. Ice Heat asks Light for permission to escort him to the town. She notices that the fighter Suzu is quiet and not speaking, so she says to her, how can you meet Master Light without greeting him or saying anything? Suzu's gun starts talking and apologizes to Light for Suzu's shyness. But Light says, I'm not upset at all, and I understand the tension and anxiety Suzu feels since it's her first time meeting and talking with me. They begin moving on their way to the giant tower. On the way, we see Gold talking to Jack saying, It's been a long time since I saw you. Jack says, I'm your big brother, I have to be here to check on you. He says, it was Eli who asked me to come so I could meet you and also check on my little brother Light. We see the other female servants are very annoyed that Fighter Jack is talking about Light so casually and without respect. When Jack notices they are upset, he says to them, calm down, there's no need for tension and anger because I love Light very much and genuinely consider him my little brother. He says, I always treat Light this way, and he has never shown me that he is upset or angry. Light immediately intervenes and says, that's enough, Jack. Don't make a big deal out of it and don't provoke them further. He says to them, I'm not angry with Jack and I don't get upset when he calls me his little brother. They say to him, all right, we're not upset since you're not bothered and nothing is bothering you. Light notices that Ice Heat is wearing strange gloves and says to her, I'm always in the dungeon, and I've never seen you wear these gloves before. She says to him, I always learn from May how to be a very good maid, and I always wear these gloves during service. I haven't taken them off before. Mira says to her, then why are you wearing a maid's uniform when you've come to meet Light now? She says to her, I can't change my clothes at all because I am his maid. Light notices that Suzu is always walking silently and not talking. He says to Nemo, why is she so quiet all the time? I've never heard her not speak. Nemo says to him, she is a very shy fighter, and only talks to her gun. He says, I must talk to Eli to find out what kind of ability she has that lets her talk to her weapon. Light finally arrives in front of the tower and meets Eli, who is happy that he has finally returned. But Light is amazed by the giant tower's size and says, when I saw it up close I didn't expect it to be this massive. Then Aoki and Nazuna arrive and welcome Light. At that moment Light removes his mask and welcomes them. Eli says to him, you look tired. Let's go inside the tower to talk better. As soon as they enter the tower, Eli tells him, I've activated a very strong magical barrier inside and outside the tower so I can monitor the tower completely and anything that happens in it. Light sees a huge giant dragon in front of Eli says to him, this is my pet. I summoned it to be the gatekeeper. She says, let's go to the upper floor of the tower. We have prepared the throne there. King Light arrives and sits on the throne and they all bow before him ready to serve. Eli begins to explain the details of the revenge plan against Sasha again. She says to him, listen carefully now. We learn that Light had planned to hold a grand party to receive the White Knights and celebrate Sasha's engagement to Michael. She says to him, I like the party idea a lot, so I added my touch to it. She says to him, I decided to test the strength of the White Knights against us to test our combat prowess. Light is very impressed with this idea and agrees to. She says to him, after we defeat them, we will imprison them inside the tower and thus the power of the Elf Kingdom will weaken. Then we will interrogate the White Knights to get all the information about the master. She says to him, this tower will be our operations center where we plan every. She says to him, during all our operations, a copy resembling you will be made and present in the city normally to deceive the Elf Kingdom into thinking you have nothing to do with anything, while you will be sitting here watching everything yourself. Light thanks her for her plan and says, I didn't expect you to be this intelligent. At the same time, we see Sasha is in the forest and sees the feral lava hounds. She says, how are these feral hounds in the forest? Even the knights with her are very scared and say, despite our great strength, we won't be able to defeat them at all. Sasha says to them, I paid you a lot of money to come with me. At the same time, Light is watching her, waiting for her to reach the giant tower so she can be received. Eli says to him, my friend the giant dragon will be the one to receive her when she enters. Sasha, upon seeing the giant dragon, is literally terrified and says, how is this dragon in the forest? She decides to retreat and go report to the White Knight. She says, I absolutely cannot kill Light alone and I'll have to confess everything to the White Knights so they come with me. But this time, if I reach Light, I won't leave him alone. Light learns that she will return to report to the White Knights to bring them with her on the mission, and thus their plan is going perfectly to lure the White Knights into the tower. Eli says to him, the battle between us and the White Knights will be extremely exciting. It's clear, Master, that things are about to get heated, so pay attention because the events are fiery. After that, Sasha goes to the White Knights meeting and tells them, I saw the feral lava hounds and also saw a huge giant dragon. They are surely the reason the animals are fleeing the forest and attacking the city. The advisor here doesn't believe her. She says to him, I saw all this with my own eyes. I even saw the giant dragon near the tower and I was very scared. The queen is shocked when she hears about a giant dragon in the forest and doesn't know how it got there. The knights say, this way our kingdom will be destroyed by the monsters. At that moment, Sasha says to them, everything I said is true and correct. She says to them, I risked myself to enter the forest and gather all this information for you. The advisor then speaks to Hardy and says, Sasha's words are largely correct because we just received a report confirming this matter that there are monsters in the forest. He says behind this matter is a human dwarf, and that human dwarf was also the reason for the defeat of the White Knight Tutu. He says to him, After Sasha put herself in danger, I think you have no excuse now to start gathering the white knights to invade the forest and go to the tower. At that moment, Hardy stands up, angry, and indeed makes the decision to gather the white knights. They decide to enter the forest and go to the tower to explore it. Afterwards, Sasha goes to meet the advisor and requests to join the search unit to go with them to explore the forest and the tower. He says to her, your level is low and it's not suitable for you to come with us. But suddenly he says to her, I don't mind you joining us, but on one condition. He says to her, my condition is that you borrow something from your father. He says to her, of course you understand what I mean by the thing I want you to take from your father. Indeed, she goes to meet her father and says to him, I want to ask you for a specific favor, but we don't know what the thing is that she took from her father. Afterwards, the white knights arrive at the fort. We see Hardy beginning to lay out the plan and saying to them, as soon as we enter the forest, we will follow Sasha's instructions because she is the only one who knows the way to the tower. One of the knights says to Sasha, are you ready for this mission? Her lover Michael intervenes and says, my beloved is ready for the mission and I am confident she will help us. Says to them, I am ready and prepared, and my mission is to guide you through the forest to the path that leads to the giant tower. But it's clear the knights are not convinced of her strength and say she only joined the mission through connections because she's Michael's fiancé. Then they begin to move through the forest, following the markers Sasha had drawn on the trees to reach the giant tower. At this time, Light is watching them and knows all their movements. When he looks at his hand, he finds it trembling and knows it's because of extreme excitement, and that he is very eager to meet Sasha and take revenge on her. During the White Knight's journey through the forest, one of the knights says to her, are you sure you know the way? She says to him, of course I know the way well, but immediately she trips. Michael, the love of her heart, immediately catches her before she falls. Michael asks the other knights not to make her nervous and says to them, I am confident in her abilities and she will get us there safely. Indeed, she manages to lead them to the giant tower. When they first see the view of the tower, they are literally amazed by its huge size and say, who could have built it so quickly? It must be a sorcerer or a warlock. Suddenly the gate opens and the feral lava hounds come out. When they see them, they know they are very strong feral hounds. One of the knights says to Hardy, let's attack them. But Hardy says to him, I want to avoid fighting as much as possible and save our energy and strength for exploring the tower. He says to him, I have prepared a plan to lure these hounds deep into the forest. Indeed, a group of adventurers uses fireworks to lure the lava hounds away and clear the path for them to enter the tower. After the hounds enter the forest, we see Hardy here beginning to use a special skill. This skill is called the skill of silence, which literally nullifies any sensation around them to the point where Sasha can't even hear her own voice or the sound of her own heartbeat. They begin to enter the gate. Sasha here is excited and her only goal is to find and kill. Master Light, of course, is watching them on their way inside the tower and says to Eli, begin the second phase of their plan. Indeed, we see a huge enchantment opening beneath their feet, and they all disappear at once. We learn that they were split up, each distributed to a different place to be questioned one after the other. Light says, directed at Sasha, take your time until you reach me, because you are the star of my show, and I must take the severest revenge on. I wonder what Light is. Continue our story and see Sasha asking Michael, saying, are we still inside the tower until now? He says to her, I don't know, but there's no solution before us except to explore the place ourselves. He tells her, stay behind me so if anything happens I can protect you. And they begin climbing the tower. And of course Light is watching them, very excited, waiting for them to reach him. Hey, don't rush your fortune. The party will start in a little while. And after a short while you'll find them entering the door in front of you. Then we go to the two white knights, Nia and Kia, and they are surprised by the entrance of Mira and Ice Heat. Mira says to Ice Heat, didn't you leave this round for me alone? They seem very weak and won't last in my... Ice Heat of course doesn't like the comment and says to her, these are Master Light's orders. So of course Kia and Nia get very upset and say to them, are you saying we are weak? And they ask them, who exactly are you? Mira replies, are you stupid or what? It's very clear we are your enemies. And Mira calls them Farron because they are very weak. But AI warns her saying, be careful, Farron sometimes bite and we need to be very careful with. And of course Kia and Nia get very upset because they are being called Farron and they immediately use their great speed and attack. But Mira and Ice Heat anticipate their movements and manage to dodge their first attack. They are of course surprised by their great speed, but still insist they are weak. So immediately Kia and Nia attack with their weapons, but again Mira and Ice Heat manage to dodge the attack. Kia and Nia keep moving very quickly between the walls. Mira says about them, clearly they aren't Farron. They've turned out to be squirrels. They get very upset again from this bullying and say to Mira, we'll make you stop bullying us. Then we go to one of the white knights known for his love of girls and he senses someone around him. So he says, come out now because I know where you are. And the fighter Suzu comes out. Of course this knight immediately falls in love with her when he sees her and says to her, you are very beautiful. He says to her, "What do you think about us quitting this fighting and becoming friends? Or if you don't have a boyfriend, I'm ready to be your boyfriend." The weapon with Suzu speaks and says, "This knight seems foolish and stupid." So the knight is surprised here that there is a weapon that speaks and says to him, "How do you have this ability?" The knight asks the weapon, "Can you tell me the technique you're made with?" The weapon says, "The technique isn't important now because you're about to die at the hands of fighter Suzu soon." The knight is very upset because he is forced to fight a beautiful girl like Suzu and says, "There's no problem, after I defeat her, I'll convince her to be my girlfriend." The weapon with Suzu says, "Don't try, because Suzu is a very complicated girl and never likes any boy at all." Suzu gets angry that her weapon is calling her complicated and keeps hitting the weapon against the wall to teach it manners. The knight says to her, "Calm down a bit, don't get angry so quickly." And he says, "Clearly there's no solution before me, except fighting to make her love me and repeat that I become her friend." He summons a hidden bow and attacks Suzu, but Suzu easily dodges his attack. He is of course surprised that she dodged his attack, and then Suzu returns the blow and hits him with the rifle she has. But the knight still manages to block it, and of course he is surprised by her great strength and says to her, "I will love you more because of your great strength." We return to Mira and Ice Heat watching Kia and Nia jumping around in front of them with their great speed. We see Kia and Nia here very excited and saying, "We must make her stop bullying us and prove to her that we are much stronger than her." Then they perform a special spell and use their aerial blade attack, but Mira and Ice Heat again dodge their attack. But this time they are surprised that Kia and Nia suddenly appeared behind them and repeat the attack again, but again they dodge the attack and say, "We need to be careful because they are using techniques we've never heard of before." Then we go to the forest and see one of the lava hounds attacking a human, but suddenly Light's copy intervenes and stops it, ordering Gold and Nemo to deal with this lava hound and finish it off. And of course this is a performance to convince everyone in the city that Light has no relation to the monsters in the forest or to the giant tower. The dog acts scared of them and runs away. And of course Light watches this from his throne and says to AI, "Is this your plan?" She says, "Yes, this is my plan," but Gold and Nemo place their touch. We return to the knights Kia and Nia continuing to attack Mira and Ice Heat, but their attacks are without any use because Mira and Ice Heat can dodge them very easily. But Kia and Nia say, "We won't give up and can fight you for a full day without getting tired." Mira says to them, "Clearly you are burning energy for nothing because even if you stay a full day you could never scratch us." They reply to Mira and say, "Let's see who will win in the end." And they increase the number of their aerial blades during the attack. AI and Mira feel the situation has become serious, but suddenly Mira is shocked that she was stabbed with a knife and falls to the ground. Then Kia runs to her and cuts off her arm, and they keep laughing of course at Mira because they managed to cut off her arm. And they say the battle against you will be very easy. Mira says to Ice Heat, "What do you think about what they are saying?" Ice Heat says, "We have already determined their capabilities and what abilities they can use, and now it's our turn to attack." Mira then says to them, "Look at your weapon, you won't find any blood traces on it, and that's proof the arm you cut off was an illusionary arm." Then she gets up and eats her own arm and begins to grow a new arm. They are shocked that she has regeneration ability. Mira says to them, "Don't be so shocked because this isn't the only trick I have." She grabs her head and removes it and keeps playing with it. Mira begins to introduce herself and says to them, "I am the owner of the illusion skill and my level is 7,000. Ice Heat begins to introduce herself as the Queen of Fire and Ice and that her energy is also 7,000. So of course Kia and Nia don't believe and say to them, "You are laughing at us. It's impossible for anyone to reach that level ever." Ice Heat says to Mira, "Clearly they are stupid, enough playing with them until now. Let's finish them off." And they keep arguing about who will start the attack first, and of course their talk angers Kia and Nia and makes them attack again. But this time Mira and Ice Heat don't move from their place and block their attack while standing. So of course the knights are afraid of their great strength and say, "It seems they are right and they are very strong." And immediately they say, "Let's get out of here," and run away. Ice Heat says to Mira, "Now cover yourself because I'm going to use my supernatural power." Mira immediately begins to create a strong barrier to protect herself from the power of Ice Heat's attack. Ice Heat begins charging her power and decides to use her right arm's service, which possesses the power of fire magic. We return to Suzu escaping the attacks of the White Knight, and the knight says to her, "Don't try to escape because my arrows are very precise, and it's better for you to surrender to me and agree for me to be your boyfriend." And indeed we see Suzu, although she is escaping from the knight's arrows, the arrows keep circling and changing direction and keep chasing Suzu to hit her. Suddenly, Suzu jumps in the air and dodges all his attack. The knight thinks he managed to hit her, but after the fog clears, he finds her standing in front of him, extremely angry. So he says to her, "I didn't expect you to be this strong, and it's the first time I see a girl possessing both strength and beauty." But the knight is shocked afterward when he finds Suzu extremely angry and keeps saying, "I must kill you and finish you off right now, immediately." We return to Kia and Nia looking for a way to escape, but they find a huge wall in front of them and the path closed. Then they feel intense heat, and that is the supernatural power of ice heat. So they decide to use an ice spell to block her fire attack, but the power of ice heat's fire is very strong and melts the ice barrier they made. So they decide to repeat the same spell, and every time they make this barrier, unfortunately, it melts and can't withstand the great power of ice heat until the fire magic reaches. We return to Suzu, still angry and saying to the White Knight, "You must die," and keeps firing dozens of shots into the air with her gun. The knight, of course, is standing scared and doesn't understand what she is doing exactly. Suddenly, she makes all the shots she fired immediately attack him. So he immediately runs away and says, "Let's get out of here," and tries to dodge the bullets and uses his hidden bow, but unfortunately, he can't block all these bullets until most of the bullets pierce him and literally puncture him. We return to Kia and Nia after they become grilled meat. And Mira comes laughing at them and is surprised that just one shot from ice heat made them like grilled meat. Ice heat is very upset because they are weak after all, and she didn't get to enjoy with them or use all her power. Then Mira grabs them and hangs them like slaughtered chickens, and they keep begging her and saying, "Please forgive us, we're sorry for what we did to you." Mira says to them, "I wonder what you were doing to the humans who kept begging you." And she says to them, "I knew you were torturing them and never forgave any human ever, so I will never forgive you." And she says to them, "Master Light ordered me to finish you off," and immediately begins to eat them and swallows them with her arms. We return to the knight who loves girls after being punctured by Suzu's bullets lying on the ground. Suzu approaches him still angry and keeps hitting him and stepping on his face until she finishes him off. The rifle says to her, "What did you do?" "That wasn't Master Light's orders because he asked us to test their strength first before killing them." At this time, Light is watching them from afar and says about Suzu that she is very sensitive and affected by any word said to her. And he asks AI, "Has Sasha not come yet until now?" She says to him, "Wait 5 minutes and she will enter now." We go to Sasha and her fiancé Michael walking in a large path and not knowing what the end of this path. So Michael says to her, "Clearly someone is luring us to him, but there's no other solution before us except to continue on this path." Then we go to another knight waiting for his fate, and the fighter Jack comes to him and says, "There's no one here except us two." And Jack begins to introduce himself and says, "My name is Jack, the Iron-Blooded Fighter, and my level is 7,000. The knight doesn't believe and keeps mocking him and says, "No one can ever reach that level." Jack says to him, "Believe it or not anyway, the winner between us is the one who will remain standing on his feet until the battle between us ends." The knight is annoyed by Jack's way of speaking, which he feels his arrogance and excessive confidence, and says, "Don't think I believed your trick and that you are really level 7,000. The knight grabs his axe and says, "This axe with me will finish you with one strike." Jack says to him, "Here I am standing in my place waiting, and I want to tell you that I will block your attack with my hand without having any weapon." Immediately the knight attacks him, but Jack manages to push him away very easily and says, "You are very slow." The knight gets angry and repeats the attacking him with very fast strikes. The knight is surprised and says, "My commander Hardy used to find difficulty blocking my attacks before." And when he attacks him for the third time, he is surprised that Jack blocks his attack with one finger and throws it away. So the knight gets up upset and says, "It's impossible for me to lose to someone like this because the reputation of the White Knights and the kingdom of the Elf must not be disgraced." Jack says to him, "So you are afraid for the Elf and not afraid for humans?" The knight says those humans are very despicable creatures and don't deserve to live or have any necessity. The knight begins to threaten Jack and says, "Watch what I'll do to you now," and he begins to say a strange spell and asks the axe with him to provide him with all the power he needs. And indeed we see this knight releasing enormous magical energy to the extent that the energy is huge and affects him and makes him bleed. Jack, of course, stands like a lion in front of him unafraid and says, "Now see what I'll do to you," and says to him, "I will also block this attack of yours without having any weapon at all." Immediately the knight attacks Jack with a very strong strike, but Jack grabs his axe very easily. The knight is surprised that Jack's hand turned into an iron hand. Jack says to him, "Didn't I tell you I am the Iron-Blooded Fighter?" And Jack begins to transform into a very strong iron fighter form and says to him, "This armor of mine can never be destroyed." The White Knight gets angry and keeps attacking with his axe, but Fighter Jack is not affected at all until the knight decides to attack with his strongest. But Jack immediately grabs the axe and breaks it, then gathers a huge amount of energy and gives him a strong punch that sends him flying. Jack is surprised that the punch he gave the knight killed him and says, "I didn't expect him to be this weak at all," and says, "I wonder about the others, did they finish their battles or not yet?" Then we see Commander Harley standing, and when he looks behind him he finds Nazuna appeared and says to him, "Get ready for the upcoming battle, and I want to tell you that I am the strongest among all the fighters here in the tower." So clearly Nazuna is challenging Harley and intends to make him into a dish. We then see Commander Harley standing, and when he looks behind him, he finds Nazuna has appeared. She tells him to get ready for the upcoming fight and says, "I want to tell you that I am the strongest of all the fighters present here in the tower." We see Knight Harley. Even though Nazuna tells him she's the strongest one in the castle, he remains silent and doesn't say anything. Then he asks her, "So you are my enemy?" She says exactly and tells him, "You are the strongest knight here." She says her commander, Light, ordered her to fight the strongest one here to test her power. When he looks at her, he notices she's a small child, but he senses she has great experience and her magical energy is strong. He says he expects her commander, whom she speaks of, possesses much greater power, but he says none of that matters in the end. He grabs his sword and says, "No one can defeat me." So Nazuna also grabs her weapon and says, "Alright then, show me what you've got." Harley notices that the armor and sword she's holding are saturated with strong magical energy. Nazuna says to him, "Are you just going to keep staring at me? Don't you intend to fight me?" But Harley notices the power she possesses isn't human at all. He says he must test her power to know what technique she uses. Nazuna, finally fed up, says, "It seems I'll be the one to start the fight since you've been standing there for an hour just watching me." She swings the sword she's holding and strikes Harley a very powerful blow. The force of her strike causes a large wound and breaks a large part of the tower. He, of course, is standing there shocked, unable to believe her immense power. Harley falls to the ground and she can't believe she finished him off. She approaches him, tries to wake him and says, "Did you really die?" Meanwhile, Ellie is watching her with Light, of course, and keeps shouting at her saying, "What did you do to my tower?" She tells her, "I told you my tower is linked to my magic, so don't be foolish with it using your strength, and you didn't listen to me." So she feels embarrassed and doesn't know how to respond. She begins to repair the destruction Nazuna caused with her magic and tells her not to repeat this again. She tells her she must learn to control her strength properly. At that moment we see Harley start to speak. Clearly the blow he took was very powerful, and he begins to chant a spell to heal himself before he dies. Nazuna is surprised that Harley woke up again. Ellie tells her, "I used a spell to prevent anyone from dying here inside the tower." We see Harley, who then apologizes to Nazuna for underestimating her strength and says, "From now on, I will use all my power so you know what the strength of a true knight means." Ellie is very worried about Nazuna, but Light tells her, "Don't be afraid, I'm confident she can defeat him." Then we see Harley activate his special silence skill. After this skill, Ellie literally can't hear anything. We learn that this silence skill reduces the skills and abilities of anyone he's fighting against. Not only that, but the silence skill also increases Harley's power. We see a magical energy appear where the broken sword was, completing the sword again, which of course is due to the Samad spell. Nazuna here is surprised by everything she's seeing. Harley says, "The attack from my sword now after activating the silence skill is impossible for anyone to block or dodge." Here Harley is surprised that Nazuna dropped the sword she was holding and decided to deal with her bare hands. He says, "This girl must be stupid because it's impossible for anyone to stand before my enchanted sword." Before he decides to attack her, he's surprised as Nazuna suddenly appears right in front of him and lands a very powerful punch that sends him flying far away. Nazuna is happy this time that she managed to hit Harley without breaking the tower's wall, but Ellie shouts at her again, saying, "I told you to fight him without harming the tower or causing any permanent damage." She tells her, "It seems you want to deplete my magical energy repairing the tower." Nazuna says, "Then what should I do? I don't know how to fight him." As usual, they keep bickering with each other. Again, Ellie is forced to use her magical mana to repair the broken tower, and Light finally has to intervene and calm Ellie down. He tells her, "Enough, don't make it a big deal. The important thing is she's carrying out her task successfully." Ellie tells him, "I don't care if she breaks the tower or not. I just wanted to teach her how to control her magical power." Then Light checks on Ellie to make sure she's okay because she used a very large portion of her mana to repair the tower. She tells him, "I'm fine 100%, but I feel a bit tired." He notices that Sasha is about to enter their area, so he starts preparing a welcoming party fitting for her. He puts the mask on again and says, "Come on in, so you can meet the fate that's been awaiting you for a long time." Sasha then arrives with Michael in front of the door. He tells her, "The person we're looking for is behind this door." He tells her, "I don't want you to be afraid at all as long as I'm with you. If anything worries you, I'll intervene to protect you from any danger." Indeed, Sasha begins to prepare herself. Then we see the door open and see Light welcoming her. He tells her, "I've been waiting for you for a long time." Michael tells her, "The person standing before us is the master of the tower." After they enter, the door closes behind them. Then Sasha notices that the person sitting on the chair is the same boy she met before, the one wearing the mask. Then Light begins to welcome Sasha. Michael is surprised and asks her, "Have you seen this boy before? Do you know him?" Sasha tells him, "I've only seen him once before." She starts shouting at him and says, "How can you talk to us while sitting down? You're supposed to stand up when you talk to us, respect and honor us." She is upset and says, How can a disgusting human like you know my name and talk to me this way? Light says to her, so that's all you care about, that I know your name. Then he stands up, removes the mask and tells her, think back 3 years, Laura. Indeed, when she first sees him, she is shocked that it's Light and can't believe he's still alive. Then she starts asking him questions, saying, where did the burns on your face go? And how have you not grown at all after 3 years? He tells her, I managed to deceive you with illusion magic. He tells her his growth stopped 3 years ago. He tells her he did this so he wouldn't forget what you all did to him. Michael here asks Sasha, who is this you're talking to? Is this the same boy you told me you finished off and killed? Light replies to him, yes, it's me. I managed to escape their punishment because a magical gate suddenly appeared and took me to a completely different place. He tells him, I am here now thanks to my friends who helped me all this time and stood by me to make me strong, waiting for this moment when I take revenge on you. He tells her, the tower you're in was built specifically to avenge your betrayal. He tells her, I hope you like the tower. She is of course surprised and says to him, how did you do all this and gain this great power? At that moment, Michael laughs and says, this is our chance to tame the dragon that appeared in this tower, and also finish off Light and take the tower from him, making it our command center for the coming period. He tells her, this way our rank, yours and mine will rise and will take a very high place among the elf. He tells her, keep this a secret between us, and now let's finish off this boy sitting in front of us. The foolish Sasha likes Michael's plan and tells him, you're right, this is our chance to take revenge on this boy again. She begins to threaten him and says, this time you won't escape death. Light looks at her with utter contempt, stands up, grabs his staff and requests that Ellie and Yuki not intervene no matter what happens. Light descends before them and says, let me present you with your wedding gift, which is taking revenge on you with my own hand. Sasha of course keeps laughing and mocking him, saying, you're going to take revenge on me? Honestly, I don't know what your power is now, but no matter what it is, you can never reach our power. She tells him, you are in the beginning and the end a human, and my power has recently increased to level 500. She has an ancient artifact called the Ocarina, which she took from her father. She begins to play it, creating magical circles on the ground, and is able to summon Jin fighters. She keeps laughing and tells him, you will die at their hands. One of the knights attacks Light, but Light easily dodges the attack and tells the knight who attacked him, your power is good, but your power won't be enough to defeat me. Immediately he flies to attack him and strike him, but the knight manages to create a strong shield to block Light's attack, but the shield unfortunately can't last long. Light breaks it, and after the shield breaks, the knight's arm also breaks. One of the 3 knights uses a spell and heals him again. Sasha of course is shocked by Light's power and says, how is he able to keep up with them in fighting even though he's a lowly human? Light tells her, I forgot to tell you something important. I've gained some experience recently too. He shows her his magical energy, which is 4 nines. Even though she is shocked and can't believe it, Michael tells her, calm down a bit, it's impossible for this boy's tricks to have reached level 3 nines. This is definitely a trick from him to scare us. Sasha tells him, you're right. She orders the Jin to attack Light immediately to kill him, but Light tells them, well, I'll show you my real power then. He keeps using many magical spells and manages to immobilize the knights so they can't move. Then he flies in the air and uses ice and fire spells to finish off the knights. But at that moment, Sasha grabs the ocarina weapon again and plays it. She manages to create magical shields to block Light's attack. She tells him, no matter how hard you try, you can never defeat my knights, because with this magical instrument I can summon any number of these knights. Light feels these knights are much more annoying than he expected and suddenly disappears. He appears in front of Sasha and prepares to attack her, but before he touches her, we see Michael with his shield blocks Light's attack. Michael tells him, I won't allow you to touch my beloved again with your filthy hands. Light tells him, this shield is a good idea to block my attack, but unfortunately it won't be able to withstand my power. Indeed, Light strikes the shield with a very powerful spell, but the shield manages to withstand Light and manages to push him back. Light is surprised by the great strength of the shield, so Michael tells him, it's very natural for you to be surprised because this is the shield of our royal family, and it can block the strongest magical attack. Immediately Michael activates a spell with this shield and is able to break the bonds on the magical knights. He tells Light, no matter how hard you try, you won't be able to defeat us. He tells him the battle ended before it even began. Sasha keeps bullying him and says, is this all you've got? Is this the power you keep threatening us with? We see Ellie and Yuki are very annoyed by Sasha's provocation and of course want to intervene to teach her a big lesson. But Light keeps laughing at her bullying. So they say, has this boy gone crazy or what? He tells her, if you call me a failure and desperate, then I'll now show you the true meaning of despair. Light decides to use the first level of the spiritual seal, but Ellie and Yuki tell him, don't use it because its power is apparently great. We see Light activating the funeral skill, and a very strong magical energy emerges. Sasha and Michael, of course, don't understand what's happening, but they are prepared for any attack from Light. Suddenly, the magical staff in his hand changes shape and appears in the form of a very strange weapon, emitting terrifying magical power. Light begins to approach them with complete confidence, and they are both very afraid of the power emanating from him. Immediately, Michael tells Sasha, use your knights and have them attack him quickly. Immediately, she orders the knights to create a strong magical shield. But Light, with a single strike from the weapon he holds, literally tears those three apart in seconds. Immediately, Michael tells Sasha summon knights to replace them quickly. As soon as she starts using the magical instrument again, Light tells her, there's no use in using your instrument. But suddenly he feels his hand hurting him because the magical energy emanating from the weapon begins to burn it. But in the end he doesn't care and says, I won't let a simple burn on my hand affect my revenge. But at that moment, Sasha finishes playing the magical instrument and summons the chief magical knight. She tells him, now watch what he'll do to you. The knight begins to use the spell Holy Blade and opens a magical circle above Light. We see a very large magical spear appear above Light, preparing to attack him. Michael is fascinated by Sasha's magical weapon, which she took from her father, and says this will be the cause of our victory today in the battle. Immediately we see the spear beginning to attack Light. Sasha begins to bid him farewell, saying, see you in the afterlife. But suddenly the magical energy from Light's weapon destroys and completely shatters that spear. They are of course shocked to the Light tells them, do you think that with the magical instrument you have, you can finish me off? Sasha of course can't believe he was able to block her strongest attack. She orders the remaining knights to attack Light. Indeed, the knight summons 3 of the powerful spears to attack Light again, but a magical energy in the shape of a dragon emerges and destroys all those spears easily. Light keeps approaching them with complete confidence. Sasha still doesn't surrender and keeps ordering the knights to continue attacking him. Indeed, the knights keep attacking Light with strong magical power, but Light manages to repel them easily with the magical staff he holds. He keeps laughing mockingly and tells her, show me your limit because as soon as I get close to you I'll kill you immediately. And Light looks at the head of the guards confidently and says, looks like you haven't learned your lesson, and with a single strike he shatters the magical shield, breaking the guard's arm in the process. Michael immediately orders Sasha to use the magic instrument again to summon more guards after he is destroyed. When she tries to play the magical instrument again, she is shocked to find the magical guards are not being summoned. She feels something is wrong and is stunned to see the magical instrument in her hand crumbling. Light laughs and says, I used my magical power to prevent this magic instrument from regenerating again. Michael in disbelief says, who are you, a demon or something? How could you use magical energy to destroy our rare magic instrument? Light immediately brandishes his magical spear and says it possesses overwhelming magical power capable of destroying anything in its path. Michael can't believe his ears and laughs, saying, you've been messing with us from the start. First you said you were from the level 9909 category, and now you're telling us you have a rare magical spear that can destroy anything. It's clear you're just making things up. Sasha says to him, your last attack was just a lucky hit, nothing more. A worthless whiny brat like you could never defeat us. Michael then brings out his magical shield and says, the magical shield I inherited from my family can withstand any attack no matter how powerful. Light laughs and says, well then let's test it. He immediately uses his magical power and attacks Michael with full force, saying, let's see if your shield can withstand my great power or not. Light succeeds in breaking Michael's magical shield and sends them flying. Michael, pathetic and fallen on the ground, says it's impossible for a human to possess all this magical power. He asks Light, who are you? Tell me. Light says, right now I'm looking for the maestro and want to know how powerful he really is. Michael refuses to give him any information about the maestro and says, someone like you is a danger and a threat to the elf kingdom and must be eliminated. Sasha gets up then and Michael reassures her she's okay and that nothing happened to her. He says, we need to get out of here now. We'll look for another chance to take revenge on him. He pulls out a strange magical feather from his pocket and begins to chant an incantation to activate it, but is surprised to find his incantation isn't working. He tries to activate it multiple times, but it still doesn't work. Light keeps staring at him, laughing at him. Light then says, your incantation won't work because the entire tower is surrounded and under the effect of a powerful incantation that prevents the use of magic. However, Michael doesn't believe it and says, there is no incantation in the world that can prevent instantaneous teleportation magic. Light feels Michael is stupid and calls for Lily, saying, explain to this fool why his incantation won't work. Lily says it's true that normally no incantation can prevent instantaneous teleportation, but the incantation I used on the tower is one of my own creations, and no one has been able to find a solution for it until now. She tells Light, I worked very hard to activate this incantation. Michael and Sasha hear this and are completely stunned, unable to believe it. Light then says to him, so what are you planning to do now? Michael says, don't get too full of yourself, because your end will be at the hands of the White Knights. Right now their time is searching for us and they will come to help us and finish you off. He says, our leader Hardy's magical power alone exceeds 3,000. In other words, you have no chance of defeating him. Oh my, he doesn't know what Nizuna did to him, that she finished him off with a single blow. Light laughs at him and says, all right then, keep dreaming your dreams. He then orders the door to be opened. As soon as the door opens, all of Light's assistants enter, carrying the corpses of the White Knights, with Hardy, who received a proper beating, at the forefront. Michael and Sasha are literally left speechless, unable to believe that all their leaders have been defeated and are now lying on the ground before them. They then notice that Light's hand is burned due to the immense magical power within the spear. But Light reassures them, saying, don't worry about me, I'm fine. Light then approaches Michael and Sasha and says, so tell me again what you were planning to do earlier. Immediately, Michael crawls behind him and says, I'll tell you what, boss. I have a great idea. How about we team up? That way we can rule the entire world. Sasha, of course, can't believe the strange words Michael is saying. Michael then says, you possess incredibly great magical power. If we cooperate, you can achieve anything you desire. But Light looks at him in bewilderment and says, you think I care about power and ruling? All I want is to take revenge on you and reveal the truth to everyone. Michael says, all right then, I'll confess everything to you. He says, I have nothing to do with any plan to kill you. I know nothing about this matter at all. Sasha feels he is betraying her and trying to save his own skin. She says to him, what nonsense are you talking about? Immediately, he turns on her and the love between them disappears in an instant. He says to her, who are you? I don't know you. You're just a worthless whore. He says to Light, here you go, boss, finish her off. She's not even worth 3 pounds. Light says, don't worry, I won't kill you with my own hands. He calls for Lily and says, you come and finish them off. Lily is very happy and approaches them, saying, I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. She says, I will kill you slowly and make you suffer. Michael keeps begging her, saying, I know your master is kind and would never allow us to die. He says, I am willing to be your loyal servant, but please forgive me, don't kill me. But Lily doesn't listen to his words and keeps thinking of a way to finish them off and torture them. At that moment, Michael tries to take advantage of the opportunity and attempts to escape. Immediately, she uses a very strange magic, and many sharp thorny tree branches emerge, instantly grabbing him and hanging him in the air. She says to him, how do you like the torment you're feeling now? He keeps begging her to forgive him, but she approaches him and says, you must be tortured before you die. She activates a second incantation on him until she finishes him off. Sasha, of course, is looking at him terrified, having messed up herself. But Light suddenly calls for her and says, are you going to kill me too, or what? Have you forgotten what you did to me when everyone was bullying and treating me horribly? He says all of that was lies and deception. You were just using me. I saw you happy when I was being tortured and dying. She says, I am not at fault at all. Guru was the one planning everything and I couldn't disobey his orders. She says to him, I know, Light, that you loved me. You should forgive me and take revenge only on those who wanted to kill you. Suddenly, Uds intervenes and stands in front of her, saying, aren't you ever going to stop lying and deceiving? She says to her, you'd be a fool to think Master Light would believe this nonsense. She says, I will let my animals eat you and savor you. But before she finishes her off, we see Light intervene and says, don't do anything to her. Be a well-behaved girl. He says to Sasha, don't be afraid. I won't kill you now because I still don't know the whole truth. Until I know everything, I'll let you suffer psychologically so you can live through what I lived through before. Before leaving, he says to her, there's something I forgot. He takes out the arrow she shot him with long ago and shoots it into her leg to make her feel his torment. He then calls for Mira and says to her, you know what to do with the rest. Deal with her. Mira approaches her and releases strange-looking insects. She ties her up and begins to eat away. Of course, she keeps calling for Light and begging him, but Light, of course, ignores her and continues on his way. But suddenly the torment becomes too much for him, and he falls to the ground. Light is forced to cancel the incantation to avoid further humiliation. Afterwards, he returns to his dungeon once more. We see all his assistants worried about him and checking on his condition. But Lily says to them, I am very worried about him because he used his most powerful incantation. She says that incantation gathers all our power together at once. Light was forced to seal the incantation after using it so he wouldn't die. She says to them, the important thing now is to pray for him to recover. Later we go to Light, and as soon as he opens his eyes, he finds Mai beside him. Mai immediately reassures him that he is okay. Light apologizes to her for making them worry and fear for him. When he tries to get up, she rushes to him and says, stay seated, you're still exhausted. Mai says, you need a long time to regain your strength. Light begins to remind him of the first day she saw him and says, "When I saw the tears in your eyes for the first time, I felt how upset and sad you were, and that revenge was your top priority, that you had been waiting for this moment for a long time to get your justice." She says to him, "I don't want this revenge of yours to make you reckless and not take care of yourself because you are very precious to us and we need you." We then return to the Elf Kingdom and see one of the guards speaking to the advisor, telling him that they have lost contact with all the White Knights. Of course, he can't believe it and doesn't know where they are. The queen, of course, hears this and says to him it's impossible for anything to have happened to them. She says they have Hardy, the strongest knight in our kingdom, with them. He says to her, "It's been 2 days and we don't know anything about them." The situation is extremely concerning. Suddenly, a guard enters and says to them, "Hurry, a huge disaster. The dragons in the forest are attacking us now." He says their numbers are huge and it's the first time we've seen them. We don't know how to deal with them. We see my riding one of the dragons on her way to the castle. The queen is shocked that their numbers are so large and that they have surrounded their palace. Suddenly they hear a voice speaking to them. It is Lily, who says, "I am the witch of the tower. About 2 days ago, intruders entered my tower." She says they called themselves the White Knights and wanted to meet my master, but I did my duty with them. Suddenly she orders the dragons to execute an attack to frighten the queen and gives them a 3-minute deadline to leave. We see her later present in their palace, counting down the 3 minutes until she leaves. Here, the princess appears with the advisor. We see the queen threatening her, saying, "Your presence here is not welcome, and what you have done is a crime. You'd better take your dragons and leave immediately." Lily says to her, "Are you stupid or what? Your knights were the ones who came to my tower, which is why I came all the way to you." She says, "I want to know the reason you sent those knights to me." She continues to insult them. Of course, the queen is annoyed that she is insulting the White Knights and says to her, "Lily, it seems they came to me because they wanted to steal my treasures." The queen says the White Knights are not thieves. Lily says, "Let me verify this matter." She says, "I will now enter your mind to find out if you are lying or not." As soon as she approaches them, the advisor orders the guards to attack Lily to protect the queen. As soon as the guards attack, she uses a magical incantation. We see trees emerging from the ground and tearing them all apart. She continues to crush them until the queen finds herself trapped amidst terrifying-looking trees. Lily approaches her and says, "These trees are bloodsuckers. They suck the blood of my enemies." Of course, the queen is very frightened and tries to escape, running away. But Lily uses an incantation and trees emerge, grabbing her and bringing her back to her. She begins to read her thoughts and says, "Indeed, you are not lying. The White Knights are not thieves. But I saw within you the peak of malice and hatred for humans in an unnatural way, which upset me greatly." She says to her, "I will let you live on the condition that you free the humans who have been enslaved. If you harm humans again and try to exploit them, I will let my dragons eat you and destroy your entire kingdom." She announces before everyone that humans are now free and can live their lives normally. We return to Light once more and see Mai telling him that Lily carried out everything he asked of her, and now humans are free and are no longer slaves. Light goes out later and reassures his assistants that he is now well. He then goes out to check on the city and ensures that humans are living in it normally and are not being enslaved. Light says, "I had promised to turn this world to ashes, but now my thinking has changed. It is better to protect the world instead of destroying it." When he asks for the opinion of his assistants, they say, "Boss, we are with you in anything. If you want to destroy it, we will destroy it. If you want to leave it be, no problem." Light says, "If it weren't for the help of my friends, I would not have achieved my revenge or been able to do anything at all." And with this, the summary of Season 1 of the story of the Avenger Light ends with us. So if you enjoyed the story, hero, and want the episodes of Season 2, which of course haven't been released yet, don't forget to support us with a like and subscription so that when Season 2 is released, you'll be the first to see it with us. See you in the next video.